Welcome back, everyone, to the European wildcards that we have here on Saturday. Before we get into what we're about to see in the finals, which, first off, is something you've kind of seen today, so maybe something to expect there, something similar to expect there, I want to talk about the fact that I don't have a good bit for selling a chair to you. I'm not half the salesman that Dave could be. I can only dream of doing something like that in the future. But the only reason I'm able to sit here relaxed and unprepared to sell a chair to you is because I'm sitting in my Smite Maxnomic chair. Because I am so comfortable. What is it Mifflin said yesterday? That my lumbar is so supported wherever a lumbar is. It's near your lower back. Either way, your lower back feeling really great. All of that, you can go ahead and go get yourself a chair. Needforseat.com. Make sure you go in, use code SMITEMAX in order to get that one. But we're going into the finals here, and it's two teams that we kind of talked about earlier. In fact, myself, Gormizer, as well as Kiki, who's going to be alongside me, we had this conversation. So just like I said at the beginning of the day, it's Belt Slap versus Snake Pit, getting some mad deja vu, and these two teams are going to go up against each other in a very interesting fashion, which is to say that they are coming in specifically here for Belt Slap with a one-game advantage from winning this set earlier, and I think collectively Belt Slap have lost 1, 2, maybe 3 games total to Snake Pit. They've only lost one set so far this year. I mean, this is the time to do it, right? If you're Snake Pit, it's do or die. This is the last chance you really get.
Right, yeah, definitely. They have to come in, and they just got 2-0'd by this team a while ago, so hopefully with the new plan, don't let what happened in the past affect your future, and they can still pull things out. We did see some Nox support, some spicy picks coming out of them, so I still think that we'll be pleasantly surprised.
And they were able to push one of those games to 42 minutes, so they do have the ability to go long against Belt Slap. It's just closing it out and winning. They got really close in that 42-minute game, but they didn't quite do it. But honestly, and this is something, I mean, you've competed a lot. I want to ask you, because you've played against this team today, or Snake Pit have, does that maybe give them a little bit of an advantage? Like they know what to expect out of Belt Slap here?
A little bit. They've both found their footing in these games. They know what kind of play style they like to play. So I think Belt Slap, if they're just going to play their same game and then see how that the enemy is going to react to it.
Well, we were really lucky earlier as the animals behind you are looking to start playing around. We got to talk to Zeros a little bit. Once we found out Snake Pit were going to be their opponents, we wanted to know what they were thinking as they were kind of preparing themselves for the finals, and I got to chat with him a little bit as they go into this set. Well, we've got Zeros here from Belt Slap, and Zeros, I'm going to be honest, I was looking for literally any sign that I could ask you about, like, some struggles against Snake Pit and things that were going to go wrong, but every single time you face this team this year, you have won. Your team has gone undefeated in the regular season. You have won a majority of your games throughout all of the playoffs. I mean, when you've only dropped very few maps, I just want to know, how are you and the squad feeling going into today?
I mean, we always feel good any game we go into. I think all of us knows that we're better than the other teams. But then again, I think Snake Pit this whole year, even though we beat them pretty much always, I think they have been our biggest challenge, and they have been getting a lot better since in the start of the year. They were kind of easy, but as the late is gone, especially now when they have genetics, I think they've been getting a little bit better as well. So they're definitely our hardest matchup, I think, and that's the problem as well. When you're winning all the time, you don't learn that much. But if you lose, they had so many opportunities to play against us in scrims and in tournaments. So I think they probably learned, been getting more better than we have, if that makes sense. I still think we're better, but yeah, they're definitely our hardest matchup, I think.
And that's actually the other thing I was looking at. I mean, they went from a 4th, 5th place team that was struggling in the league early to 2nd place. The only loss they had was to you guys. And a lot of the other wins, maybe not quite as dominant as some of the wins that you have, but still very dominant in their own fashion. And so knowing that you're going up against this kind of new reformed roster that you have watched literally all year get better and better, whereas you guys, a bunch of ex-pros kind of mingled together that have been dominating, is that something that worries you going into this, knowing that they have all of that history against you, and that, I mean, realistically, they're just one set away. If they can do it, does that maybe upset you, or are you just nah, we're still confident?
I mean, we're confident, but I mean, I've never taken anything for granted, especially in double elimination, because I think most tournaments I played double elimination, when I was in SPL, has been pretty rough. So I never take anything for granted until we actually get the win. But yeah, I'm very confident.
Yeah, especially I look, just coming in as the 1 seed is kind of historically a really shaky thing to do anywhere. So that's definitely something you got to keep your eye out for. I'm going to jump a little beyond the finals, just as an if you win kind of scenario. You will end up, your squad going up against some of the pro league teams, and I just want to know how you guys think you could fare in that fashion. Have you even put a lot of thought into it about the teams that you could go up against in Renegades or Space Station, or is your mind entirely on just this next set, win that, and then we can worry about the rest?
I mean, for now, I'm just thinking about the finals. Obviously, like we need to win that before we even get a chance of playing the other teams. But yeah, I mean, playing the SPL teams is something I've been wanting to do like this whole year. Unfortunately, with what's going on in the world, like it wasn't possible this year. But I mean, playing the SPL teams would be really fun and see like how we stand against them. Obviously, I think we have a good shot personally, but you never know.
Yeah, well, hey, it sounds like you're pretty relaxed going into this one. I like that your entire focus is just on the finals. Snake Pit, a team that you know really well. But I'm excited just to watch what will happen here in this next set. So thanks for your time, and good luck in your games.
Thank you.
Well, just like me from a few minutes ago said, me now agrees. I like that they're focused entirely on this final set, Kiki, because this is one that is really important. Again, you have the 1 game advantage. It's a best of 5. Technically, if you're Belt Slap, you just have to do what you did earlier. You have to win 2 games, and you are set. And you have to do it without dropping 3 in the process. You can technically lose 2. You've got a little bit of a window, and they've only done that once to one other team so far this year. Odds are in their favor, but they're still not taking it for granted. And again, you've competed at various levels. I just want to know, like, is that something like that you kind of respect? I guess like the way you should be treating it is just look at the next set, look at the next set. Don't get your eyes on the horizon just yet.
Right. Even if you're going against the worst team ever, you still want to make sure that you aren't going to make any mistakes. It doesn't matter who you're competing, because what you need to focus on is your gameplay, your teamwork, your strategy. So really never take the enemy, don't disrespect them, and just try to do your best.
Do their best. That's what both of these teams need to do right now. Snake Pit have their shot at moving forward. Same thing for Belt Slap, but that 1 game advantage is going to matter. So technically, here we are in game number 2, as things would have it, just the way things are going. Snake Pit are going to be your first pick for this one. Earlier, we had a lot of Sobek bans. Raw bans were coming through. We had Kepri bans. We had Yamoja make it through one of those games. I don't know if we're going to see that again. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility here. But the biggest issue we both had with Snake Pit was that they were drafting really tank-heavy and not very anti-heal, even though Belt Slap were running very healer-heavy comps. And then the Cirquette, even though she would come in, would build incredibly tanky. And a lot of that was where your issues were. Is the draft something that they could go back to, that Guan Yu, Xing Chen, Cirquette, or do you want to see them shuffle up the gods?
Well, mainly I feel like it's their banning phase. It's kind of weird. They're target banning these characters, which ends up leaving up all of the really hard to deal with characters. You have Guan Yu. So maybe change up the last ban. We'll see if they decide to ban Sobek again. There's no way that Trix Tank is so unstoppable in Sobek that it's worthy of a ban, but they could be onto something.
I mean, 75% ban rate against them. That's actually kind of ridiculous, and hey, there it is. So they're going to be forcing Trix Tank into another quote-unquote uncomfortable spot. But last time it was, what, Guan Yu, and then they went Rom Kepri? I mean, you could probably follow the same route. Snake Pit are the ones, in my eyes, that almost need to change this, especially with mid laners going away. And they do. They actually squeak this Kepri away. I mean, he's been big this weekend. Do you think he's first pick worthy?
I really don't want to say that because I don't like seeing this much Kepri being played. It's just not fun. But it really seems like Kepri's so hard to deal with. I've always been a big fan of his mitigation. It goes up to 25%. But it takes really good teamwork to fully utilize it, because you want to make sure you're stacked up, you're grouped in a line so Kepri can hit everyone on your team. And sometimes getting those revives can be hard if you are too stacked up. But it looks like Zerhos is going to stick to the Chang'e here. He hasn't shown any weaknesses on it so far. And Zerhos is the type of player who, if you get him a lead, he will ram it down your throat.
The underworld.
Yeah, honestly, this is the kind of play, at least that I'm seeing from Belt Slap, where they know what they want, they know what they won with, they know that they're going to go back to it, and if you take some of it apart, they're just going to pick the next best thing for them. But now Persephone locked in on the other side. And this is actually going to create an interesting dynamic, because I was going to start talking about executes anyway. Persephone interacts with those in an interesting way. Kepri does as well as a good counter for his ult. But I mean, what, Achilles, Thanatos are the two main executes right now that are considered meta. Ao Kuang is something that we've seen Beltslap play in the past, but is this really a world where you could see them pulling any of those out, or are they going to have to deal with this Khepri the old-fashioned way?
You could definitely see some Ao Kuang. I love Ao Kuang, but he's kind of a strange character. He does have his invis, but he doesn't really feel like he has it all right now. You much prefer physical assassins lately, especially something like a Nem. You know, you have a shield. You're never really scared to get in there. But with an Ao Kuang, you have to be much more devious about how you run around the map.
Well, they get Persephone, Nemesis, Khepri. Again, a draft that I think at any point this year we'd be glossing over. Well, Khepri maybe not so much, especially first pick. Although, again, I'm sorry, Avrin. I know you're in chat. You're probably mad at me for trying to talk down to the hug bug. But, you know, Persephone and Nemesis have both been, in their own rights, top picks that we've seen throughout the year. But I see Rom, I see this Chang'e, the way they performed earlier, this tier, historically really good for Julio, even though he hasn't played it a lot so far this tournament. And it does make things a little shaky for me, I think, going up against Beltslap, knowing that they're on some of those comfort picks. And it seems like Beltslap did their homework and remembered what they faced earlier. The Cupid, not something they've been dealing with as much, but definitely the Pro League pick to deal with Rom. The Guan Yu has been big for Snakebit, and it looks like Snakebit on the other side are going to be banning out specifically Trix Tank, at least two of their bans dedicated to him, Ganesh, and now this Daji coming through. It just feels like it's so difficult. There's so many junglers still available at this point.
Yeah, if you look at the comps right now, you can maybe say that Snakebit's comp feels a little bit better. Their gods have strong value, but I feel like Beltslap fully was aware of exactly what Snakepit was going to be taking. They took Rama, Chang'e, knowing that they're leaving up Persephone, Nem. So I feel like the way that the drafts is going is definitely in Beltslap's favor. The Kuma's going to do a great job at, you can even throw Khepri in the air, which will give him, it won't give him time to revive someone. Something like that is really great for countering Khepri.
Man, you know, at a certain point, Nemesis kind of fell off out of the meta, and we weren't seeing her picked up as much, but she's kind of been known as the counter to Cthulhu, at least for ease, since she strips so many protections. And maybe because, you know, let's see, Rom's already been picked up, Cupid's away, Jingwei's been that kind of third hunter for a lot of players. I don't know, Snakepit, this is a draft that at any given time, I can see so many teams loving trying to pick something like this up and being comfortable with it. A lot of top picks on their side. But the comfort of Beltslap here is always what keeps balancing me out. This Thanatos is not something that comes out often, but we kind of mentioned the executes earlier. With that, a Kumbhakarna that we haven't seen this weekend. I mean, a lot of fresh things. Is this something Beltslap can look to kind of continue, find themselves up 2-0 here in a best of 5? Or is this a good enough draft for Snakebit that they can take and control this game, especially early on where that's where they suffered earlier?
It's a great draft by Beltslap. It's a mid-range turtle comp. But I really feel like Beltslap know exactly what they wanted. I feel like this is what they like countering the Khepri Nemesis with. So I'm going to be looking forward for Beltslap to make some plays with the Thanatos.
Now, this is going to be interesting. I mean, we don't get to see Thanatos often, and sometimes when we see him, he doesn't look too good. We'll have to see if Beltslap can stand up to that procedure. What is Thanatos going to do in game number 2?
Thank you on the desk there, Gormizer and Kiki. It's Finch and Mifflin here as we move into the finals for EU. We will determine which team is going to Worlds right here and now. And Myth, it's a Khepri over here for Snake Pit. It's Persephone, Cthulhu, a lot of really strong gods. Beltslap have put a lot of pressure on Johnny, but also, aren't you comfortable putting a lot of pressure on Johnny?
Is where you want to put it, right? I mean, this guy is the namesake of this team, which is crazy to say because, as we know, Zeros, Trixtank, Arkle, even Julio have such storied careers, Johnny being the new guy, and it's attracting so much attention is so surprising, but not necessarily wrong. I would go as far as to say correct. Snake Pit accurately identify one of the mainstay threats of Beltslap.
Yeah, I think this could certainly work out for them here. Johnny on this Thanatos, this execute's going to be huge. Zero's confidently piloting the Chang'e in the middle lane here as well. We've not seen Chang'e necessarily do that well, but maybe the sustain could be what they need to try and keep up with this competition from Snake Pit. They clearly want to drag out these fights a bit with Cthulhu and with the hi-rez and all those options they have at their disposal to drag these fights out. So as long as Beltsack can keep up with that, they certainly have a great chance here. But, I mean, the pressure has got to be on for these two teams now, right? I mean, this is for your trip to go compete with the best of the best. And if you're Beltslap, if you're Trixtank and Zeros and Arkle, you're more than comfortable being there. You might even think you should have been there all along.
Yeah, I've had the chance to speak with Zeros, and my man has had his eyes on Worlds for the last 4 months. This is merely a stepping stone on his path as Trixtank finds Angry in the jungle. He's able to strip away those beads. He's going to play pretty safe in the coming minutes, especially up against this Thanatos out of the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to be careful there if you're Angry, right? He doesn't have the information, doesn't know if the Kumba's alone. Trixtank might not have had solo potential there, might not have demanded the beads, but if you don't know that, you gotta use him in that situation to make sure you're backing out there. So Angry staying safe rather than sorry. As you already pointed out, got to be careful for these next few minutes. When you're up against Johnny, though, and the rest of this Beltslap squad, you hate to be without your beads for any amount of time because they absolutely will punish you for it.
They will. You know what, Finch? We got to see this Chang'e earlier today, and this is set earlier, Snake Pit up against Beltslap, but it was usually flanked by a lot more healing. A Guan Yu, a Yamoja, something along those lines to make up for the lack of healing that Chang'e is able to bring on her own, and that's why Beltslap was elongating the matches, dragging it out 40 minutes if they could. But now that it's just solely Chang'e, I think once this game goes late, I might favor Snake Pit's draft. Their ability to team fight around Persephone or Cthulhu should be enough to make up for the fact that they don't have any healing of their own. So I think I want to see Beltslap play a little bit more proactively in the early games, in particular around this Thanatos.
See if they can try and get up to a little bit of an early advantage here, Beltslap, if they feel like maybe they don't quite have that edge. And John is going to be able to try and follow Genetics around, I'm thinking, right? Try and plow through that res with that ultimate. And Thanatos so good at this point of the game anyway, right? He has so much damage with the sight, has the ability to heal up a little bit off that too, and get these kills so quickly. So Johnny, kind of the pace setter here for Beltslap for the whole map, right? Even worse, Turtle on Nemesis probably wants to wait a little longer than Johnny might want to, so it's kind of up to him, I feel like, to really force the issue, you know, to be that active hand here for Beltslap and put Snake Pit on the defensive right away.
I absolutely agree. I'm keeping my eyes on the side lanes. I think Johnny should be trying to his best to put pressure onto Spudio as well. I'm keeping my eyes on mid for the 3v3 as Genetics rotates through. Looks like Johnny was able to confirm his own red buff there. And speaking of the Thanatos, it's an interesting build allocation. Instead of going for the traditional Warriors tab eye for the additional damage on their abilities, instead picking up the Ninja tab eye. I wonder if that was a decision of necessity due to gold, or if he's going to try and itemize a little bit more so towards attack speed in the future. Should keep our eyes on that.
Yeah, that is a bit interesting, huh? I wonder if there's a chance we'll see some attack speed build to be coming off from this Thanatos. I don't know. I doubt it, right? Thanatos hits so hard with his abilities. It's just like you'd want to try and lean into that if you can, but maybe Johnny has something else up his sleeve. I certainly trust whatever it is that Johnny would pick. I don't think you've made much money betting against Johnny throughout his career, right? So I'm happy to hitch my wagon up to him and see what it is that he tries for.
And we know that European Smite in particular, like their jungle path, even when they pick Achilles, they're going Stone Cutting Sword, Crusher, items along those lines. And if Johnny does decide to go towards attack speed, it's going to be strong into Cthulhu, Kin Size, Ikavale. Those items all are really good for getting Cthulhu into that execute threshold. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it, but it is going to be a really interesting adaptation. I'm really excited to see where he decides to go with it.
The Thanatos might be a bit of a surprise there for Johnny, but Julio on this tier, Arkle on Rom. They need some comfort picks here for an already comfortable team. I don't know that Beltslap has had the sweat all year long, right? This has just been a team that has absolutely been rocking and rolling, so no reason why they wouldn't now. And Julio has just been lighting it up throughout his career on this tier pick. It's perhaps his most comfortable pick as well. And I think it's going to cause the problems here for Snake Pit. In the middle of these team fights, they have to make sure they're spreading out, particularly Angry and Spudio. They don't give him an easy Fearless to worry about out there in the late game, because Tier can be an absolute nightmare.
And Tier's got a deceptively strong matchup into Persephone as well. She has to use her ultimate for Peel. Tier can just drop the Fearless to chase it down. From there, she's really got nothing to deal with the displacement factor from Tier, except for potentially losing out on your beads. It's going to distract Genetics as well. Normally, you want Genetics trying to fight with his front line, make sure that if they're diving, they should have that Scarab's Blessing as that get out of safety free net. But instead, now he's going to have to be worried about this huge dive potential that the majority of Beltslap has. Even Zeros on this Chang'e, having the Moonlight Waltz is going to be much safer in the enemy backline, can play this W key role. It's going to be very curious to see how Snake Pit decide to play around this interesting composition from Belt Slap.
It's going to be tough, isn't it? Everybody has some option for kind of getting out of there if they're in trouble. Rom going to the sky. You cover Chang'e's obvious safety already. Thanatos can do the same. And good luck trying to lock down either a Tier or a Kumbhakarna. They're much more likely locking you down. And in the Tier's case, if not just outright killing you. He did go, though, for these Talaria boots right out of the gate, looking for that extra movement speed. I feel like we used to see this movement speed built Tier. I don't know if he's going to go the full movement speed here. Is that still an option for Tier, or is that just something he likes to start here?
It's not nearly as good nowadays. The majority of movement speed items getting dropped from 10% to 7% has really put a hamper on that build. But Talaria boots in of themselves is so much movement speed that it's kind of worth to pick up, especially in a matchup like this against Cthulhu, where you know Cthulhu is likely going to outvalue its here in the late game, so you want Julio to get involved a little bit earlier on. Talaria boots, since neither solo laner has teleport, should make up for that rotation pass if he decides to try and get involved in an early Gold Fury fight or even rotate into the 3v3 in mid. Tier should have a huge advantage.
It's been as expected so far. Nearly 7 minutes into the contest and still no action. Not even any attempted action. That's fallen short here up until this point. Unless you count Trickstank putting some pressure into Angry and getting his beads earlier on, but not quite sure that qualifies. I think that's to be expected, though. Snake Belt Slap has been playing patiently all game long, but Johnny now showing some attention towards solo. Tarim, though, full health, still has the ultimate. I'm just not sure how much opportunity they have here. There's the blink into the push from Julio. Tarim responds as he must with the instant transformation, and I think that's just about it for this gank. So, likely that was what they wanted all along. They forced out Tarim's ult.
They're going to have to loop back again if they want to get value. That's a huge time sink from Johnny where he's not farming, whereas on the enemy side, Worst Turtle was getting some free farm in mid or around the camps. I want to see Johnny try and loop back, potentially look for this kill on a Cthulhu while that ultimate's still down.
Genetics has been hit by the rude grasp of death as the response. All in on to Trickstank, and Snake Pit calculate correctly. First blood goes over to the Order side team as they catch Trickstank getting a little too aggressive.
Yeah, Trick's so far up there. He knows there's a 2v3 situation because Johnny just showed presence on the right side of the map. Interesting. Maybe he's just putting a little bit too much weight into his passive, thinking he was going to get out of that situation for free. But it wasn't absolutely free for Snake Pit. Bees get burned off of Nemesis as well as Persephone, so now Angry and Worst Turtle are going to be susceptible to Thanatos' ultimate in the future. Johnny's got a lot of places now available to him to rotate in. He can try and go get the Cthulhu before the ultimate comes back up. He can play around this 3v3 in mid, but he certainly needs to do something.
We need Johnny to get active. You were saying how even with the Chang'e, maybe Belt Slap against, you know, the Khepri and all these tools over here for Snake Pit, they might have a bit of a tough time. So they need to make sure that they're getting a little bit more here out from Johnny, who has elected to go into the Brawler's beat stick. So it is just that flat pin, the anti-heal, a little bit more leaning towards ability base than maybe the Ninja Tabai might have led us to believe. But I think here into some of the more incidental sustain, what Cthulhu will do, Persephone, I think this Brawlers makes some sense.
It does, and maybe that is just a necessity purchase due to the gold that he had instead of going for the Warrior Tabai traditionally. So either way, it's going to be a pretty strong build, and Thanatos is one of the better gods at sticking in melee range due to the Death Scent on that second ability. The additional movement speed should make it easier to lock down these enemies. But still, even then, this Thanatos is a god that you associate with early game pressure. He's got some of the best level 1 through 5 in the game, and so far, it's been a very uncharacteristically quiet performance from Johnny.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen any more from him at all. I mean, we're almost a 10-minute mark, and all we've seen him do is gank a Cthulhu that was full HP, had the ultimate available, and was at his own tower line until Julio hit him with the ultimate, right? There wasn't much kill potential there. You had to think that was setting up for something, but he never capitalized. To look at Julio's build, though, he is going sort of the movement speed build that we used to see from him, right? Relic Dagger makes a ton of sense. Julio almost needs Blink to function as tier, so he goes right ahead and picks it up in that second slot.
Yeah, and it looks like he is going to be moving into the Wingblade next. Interesting build path. It's been nerfed so hard now. He's effectively going to have about 9 or 10% less movement speed once this build is completed than he would have had maybe 4 months ago before those nerfs came through. But it is going to be good into this composition. If you want Julio doing anything in these team fights, it's shutting down Angry or it's shutting down Spudio, and he's going to need that movement speed to close the gap into the back line without having to expend his ultimate, which is going to be his line of safety. So I think it's interesting, and it's been a long time since we've seen this build path used on a tier.
As I said earlier, though, I'm gonna trust Julio on this until I see data otherwise, man. He knows how to play tier right now. And if this is what he feels like he needs, I'm riding alongside him. Man, Johnny just gave me some pretty good evidence for maybe getting a bit more aggressive, huh? That scythe did quite a bit of damage there to Angry in the middle lane. Absolutely hurts, and we still really haven't seen him putting it to much use. And if nothing else, what's confusing me about it is that Thanatos doesn't feel like such a great pick if you're going to be this quiet throughout the early game. I mean, you could still get the execute from the Achilles, from Ao Kuang, who might even scale a bit better into that late game, and is definitely in Johnny's God pool. Do you see a reason for Thanatos over the other executes if we're not going to use him in the early?
Thanatos execute is one of the easiest to execute on. It's one of the easiest to land. Achilles can be blocked. Ao Kuang is conditional and can be CC immune. There's so many ways to deal with it. Thanatos, on the other hand, come late game team fight, anyone who's dropped into the threshold should be hit, unless they have Aegis up or something along those lines. So I think it is potentially just to deal with this Khepri, but
Sure.
You're right, man. He definitely needs to be getting involved earlier on. He is the crux of the early aggression of Belt Slap's draft. Every single other piece is going to be waiting for that mid to late game, except for Tyr, who is going to be isolated on his own island. Soul laners don't really get brought up in the conversation until that 15, 16 minute mark, or until that first objective around the Gold Fury.
All right, so we're basically through the movement speed tree. If we're Julio, this is how that build starts off, with a ton of HP to kind of make up for some of that tankiness, and then also just when he's in that blue stance, Tyr gets some extra. So this can work for him, going this health-based build that's prioritizing the movement speed is what we've expected from Julio, basically since we saw him starting to work on that Relic Dagger. So that all is making sense here for us. Meanwhile, Johnny seems to have kind of, as you started to hypothesize, just kind of got Ninja Tabi because that's what he could afford. Everything else so far is leading me to think that he's going to build a bit more traditionally like we'd expect from a Thanatos.
Yeah, much more standard build coming through from Johnny here. I want to see aggression soon, because we're getting to that point where both teams are starting to approach that second relic slot. Gold Fury is definitely on the menu. Both supports don't have their defensive relics either, so that should be an easy pick for whichever team is able to isolate. Khepri in particular should be pretty easy to pick up as long as Johnny's looking to play aggressive, but for the majority of this match, 13 minutes now, he's been hovering his own side of the jungle. And it's such a missed opportunity, I feel, because if you look at Snake Pit's draft, tit for tat, it seems like the majority of them are going to outscale in the late game. Cthulhu is going to be better than Tyr. Nemesis should outscale Thanatos. Persephone is a perma-ban in the SPL for good reason. And then Scarab's Blessing is just an extra life. There's so much here that Snake Pit have going for them come late game that you'd expect Belt Slap to want to get involved a little bit earlier on.
Remember, Belt Slap are the ones that came into this with the one-game advantage, this best of 5, so they only need 2 more from this point to close it out. So perhaps they feel as though they can afford to kind of test these waters with Snake Pit. They already bested them earlier in the day, sent them down to the lower bracket where Snake Pit fought their way back up. Belt Slap just kind of trying to see how this team is feeling, but this could be a way to try and push the pace. They start up the Gold Fury, and look at Snake Pit.
They don't know.
They seem none the wiser here, don't they, Myth? Belt Slap steal it away in the night.
Snake Pit, man, you gotta be playing a little bit more heads up around this. This is the exact point of the game where Gold Fury usually is contested. You see nobody on the map. Mid laner had presence for Snake Pit. They see no one's there. At that point, you have to have those red flags going. Where are they? Either Pyromancer or the Gold Fury. This time around, it is the Gold Fury, and for the first time this match, we're gonna get a little bit of disparity. But even then, it's been such a close game this entire time, and the first blood advantage going the way of Snake Pit means that it's really only 500 gold separating these two teams at this point. It's still completely even.
Yeah, that Gold Fury is nice and all for Belt Slap, but certainly not going to create the space that they need on its own. So if you're Snake Pit, you want to be there. I'm not going to mix the messages here. You want to be there to defend Gold Fury, but certainly not going to be the end of the world for them. As Worst Turtle tries up the Pyromancer, but Julio makes his way in, zooming as he is, able to check it and see they're on it, stop them from doing it, and Belt Slap put up enough of a defense to stop the Pyro. Neither one of these solo laners, though, have been doing much besides just kind of battling here in lane. When they get involved, though, that might be when they finally start hitting the gas.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Julio has elected not to rotate out yet either. With this movement speed build, it should be a free opportunity. He's got Blink and Beads as well, so he's going to be relatively safe. He doesn't have to worry about the counter rotation from Cthulhu, because Cthulhu had to pick up Blink and Thorns, meaning that he really doesn't have any way to keep up with Julio. It's just a very passive, very European playstyle so far, but we're rapidly approaching that 20-minute mark. That's when the Pyro dances are going to start, the Fire Giant dances, where they are unavoidable conflict for both teams. I think that's really where we're going to start to see some disparity in golden experience.
Oh, I like this upgraded shell that Trickstank just completed, right? Gonna make things pretty tough for Worst Turtle. I mean, Kumakarna's already a pretty tough matchup for Nemesis to deal with anyway, right? When she's trying to stick to targets and he's there, but
Absolutely.
you add in those block stacks and things get even worse.
Yeah, I think Kuma is a very smart pickup in general here, because you want to be able to separate the back line of Snake Pit. Once Cthulhu goes into Descent into Madness, it's going to be the job of Worst Turtle and Spudio to start surging forward. Angry and Genetics are going to be playing a little bit further back with the Scarab's Blessing and the Persephone. I think it's very good to have this Kumakarna, because if a single piece of Snake Pit's dive falls away, say he epic uppercuts the Nemesis or even mezzes out Spudio, it's going to remove so much of that damage, which is going to allow Belt Slap to shift their attention. Instead of running away, they could turn onto this Cthulhu, and I'm certain that's going to be the strategy.
They already have the Kin Size thought of as one of the best tools you can have against Cthulhu, even when he's transformed, to help you start chewing him down. So Arkle certainly will come into that battle properly equipped if they do end up trying to lock down Terram and causing some problems. Meanwhile, Julio looks like he's trying to start up the proxy, but Terram is sticking with him, making it hard for Julio trying to get past the tower. So if that's the idea, we might be finally seeing a rotation. Clearing out that additional wave gives you a little bit of extra time here in solo if you want to move around.
It does, but where would he rotate to at this point? Fury isn't going to be respawning for another minute and a half or so. It seems like no one's showing presence in mid. No mid lane ganks have been attempted by either team. The only ganks attempted, truthfully, have been from Johnny that one time on Cthulhu earlier on. It's just such a slow pace right now. I think this next Fury really is going to be a huge contention point. We're starting to approach that 20-minute mark where any death is going to be around 30 to 40 seconds. Any death is going to be so weighty that it could result in a straight-up skip of the Gold Fury. They could move into the Fire Giant. The magic 18-minute mark is starting to creep up.
Oh, look where Julio is. He's kind of behind the action here for Snake Pit. So if he wants to pull the trigger, could find someone, but got a bit ahead of myself there, Mifflin. We're still waiting. You know, we're still playing it cool. So no reason Julio would try and, you know, ruffle any feathers just yet when they're kind of waiting for this late game to come around. And yeah, now Johnny's build's really starting to perplex me here a bit. He must have just felt like he needed to get into the tab eye. And listen, Thanatos is not complaining about a little bit of extra attack speed, right? But it's been so ability-focused since, right? With Hydras and Erendite and Brawlers that, I don't know, just looking for the tiniest of loops, I say.
Yeah, and this is a uniquely Thanatos build. The majority of the time you'll see at least a couple more maces picked up, or more penetration, or a Heartseeker earlier on. But because Thanatos has penetration built inherently into his kit, he can go ahead and go for these high power items. Hydra is going to get a lot of value from the 75 power that he's getting from Erendite as well. So I think this is good usage. But even then, if you're going for this Hydra high power build, Ninja Tabai is sacrificing so much, it might have been worth for him to just hang out for another 100 gold. Why buy Ninja Tabai if you're not going to be looking for a fight at any point? You had time to work with.
Right.
Might as well just rocked out with the tier 2 boots for a little bit.
Johnny, though, has made it now to the 19-minute mark, and he's ready to swing if it does indeed come to blows. Anchor is showing, though, that his damage not too bad either. He's gone Divine Ruin into Soul Gem, maybe a little bit less power than we see from these mages builds sometimes when they're able to fold in things like Do More, but he should still be able to do plenty of damage and limit some of the healing from zeros as well.
He should, and that ultimate is still going to be a fantastic utility tool to CC out the opposition and make sure that the aggression isn't going to come through there. But look, Furies respawns, both teams at a completely neutral state. About a 1,000 gold lead for Belt Slap now off of just playing the map properly and getting that farm allocated properly. I want to see some heavy fighting around here. It's on Worst Turtle to find the dive on a zeros in the back. If that Moonlight Waltz ever goes down, that should be just about a free kill. And then you want to keep your eyes on Johnny on the other hand. Is he going to use the ultimate to engage the fight and try and poke someone out? Is he going to save it and try and deal with this Cthulhu or the Scarab's Blessing? I think those are the two people that you really need to keep your eyes on to see how these engagements are going to really pan out.
I like the way that Stink Pit's allocated their anti-heal, though, to kind of move over to how they're going to deal here with Zeros, with Pestilence, Toxic Blade, Divine Ruin. They didn't really overinvest in Relics, because it really is just, you know, Chong out healing the team, and then Johnny and Julio self-healing themselves. I think this is kind of a pretty good allocation here. It didn't. Do you think it really called for a Curse Donk, or, you know, this is the way to go?
No, I don't think you need a Curse Donk here at all. Chonga's healing is not nearly as plentiful as what they had to deal with earlier. I think this time around they've got the tools to deal with it. If Chonga is going to be largely the only target you're worried about, Toxic Blade might have been enough. As Belt Slap sneak away with another Fury. Snake Pit caught asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, Genetics was there, right? I mean, so that's something. He even blinks, I think, to get past and make sure he can contest the objective, you know, as a Khepri. And I think, as expected, didn't particularly pan out for them. So Belt Slap do now, as you said, have 2 Furies. But still, hasn't really netted them a whole lot. A little over 1,000 now, closer to 1,600 in their lead. Which is something, but certainly not anything that's going to cause any problems for Snake Pit in this next fight. The slow pace Snake Pit have gone with, I think that they're perfectly happy to have made it to this point into the game now. Then you get great value out of the hi-rez and Nim and this Cthulhu, and they're ready to rock. In fact, they're starting up the Pyromancer, a 2-man Mez. Does come through for Trickstank, but it does not open the door. And now Julio just kind of battling. Not a ton of kill potential here, but he has managed to pin Genetics, but it's just him and Trickstank. The frontliners are battling each other.
Yeah, this should absolutely fizzle. Zero's finally meandering towards the fight. Gonna try and move his way in there. Does a little damage check on Cthulhu, realizes it's not enough.
This is how they have their first fight. I just don't get it. But it's working. Genetics has his ultimate.
Wow!
He's there from Johnny, so okay, fireworks will abound as our first kill for Bet Slap comes through, but how can they continue this pressure? And it's so odd. How come no one from Snake Pit ever comes over to that? It was so long of a fight.
They had to be thinking what we're thinking, right? It's just Julio. It's just Trickstank. Nothing's happening here, as now Worst Turtle caught out in a little bit of a poor position. Belt Slap have a lot of time to work with, 20 seconds left on Genetics, and they're going to use that time to start the fire.
They certainly are. I mean, they know that they've kind of pushed Worst Turtle out of this fight, right? So at best, it's a 5-on-3 at least for now, and Snake Pit are going to push up into it anyway. This is risky beyond anything we've seen for the last 22 minutes. I'm not so sure it computes, but they have convinced Belt Slap to stop the objective now. It ends up worth it, and I don't know if they've got the damage to burn through Tarum. Okay, Snake Pit with 3 members have successfully stalled out the FG.
They have, but they may have cost themselves their lives. Trick Tank's back in.
They've already knocked up Spudio, though Trickstank takes quite a bit of damage himself. Airstrike will get the Hunter for Snake Pit out of danger. And Belt Slap are the ones that end up a little bit worse for wear, despite getting that pick. Myth, we find ourselves back near parity without much being accomplished.
All right, Finch, I'm going to wax poetic for a second. I got some time to work with, if history's any indicator. So the reason that Ghost Gaming puts so much value on the early game to establish their lead in the first 10 minutes is because that's when XP and gold has the most inherent value. It doesn't matter that Belt Slap has picked up gold Furies as Snake Pit start the Fire Giant, because 23 minutes in, 1,000 gold is nothing.
No, you're exactly right. That disparity means less here as the Fire Giant is down to half. A Mez has landed, so a lot are frozen on the objective, but Snake Pit still have their big Cthulhu to work with, but Zeros has delayed its buddy in the back. This time, a miscalculation from Snake Pit is the chase is from Belt Slap. Julio and Zeros are both in the back line, but Worst Turtle makes it out of there healthy. Belt Slap have defended the objective and gotten the kill.
And Johnny should be able to run from Thanatos' path in the center of the map, regroup this team, get some heals from Zeros, and start up this Fire Giant yet again. 4 members still standing on the side of Snake Pit, and they're healthy. I'm surprised that they're willing to give this one up for free.
I just don't get Europe. What's the point of doing nothing when and then playing a higher shot? It in like a all the coffee in mind, right? Why not gamble at 10 rather than 23?
Yeah, if you die now, you lose the game, right? If you die to lose the next couple of minutes. But maybe it's not a game. It's been a calculated play from Belt Slap. Every single objective this game, it'll sneak away with it. It truthfully is. They are just this comfortable playing around.
Starting the SG I didn't like. Right? I don't know what that was
fair
all
enough. Fair enough.
That did not pan out. Now Belt Slap are the owners of the Fire team, considering that they had still Finch and Miff here trying to get us back into the action here in just a moment. But Miff's game has been a slowly paced to it. It's all built up to kind of this. Belt Slap are fine with it. They make Fire Giant taking it further. They got a great push.
And this is a Belt Slap team diff situation. I really truthfully believe that Snake Pit should have had the advantage coming into these team fights at this late portion of the game just because of their draft. But it's like Belt Slap is waiting for Snake Pit to make a mistake. Maybe Snake Pit realizes
Thank you for your patience. We are back here with truly an important match. This is to determine who will be moving on into the World's Playoffs bracket. Again, they might end up playing SSG. Wouldn't feel like much of a reward for all this hard work, but perhaps they could pull something off here. I am, of course, still here with Mifflin. We just saw Beltsap take the Fire Giant not too long ago. Snake Pit started it. Beltsap won the fight and then finished it. Miff. Now Snake Pit suddenly have to just switch into defensive mode.
And legitimately, we're going to be forced into watching the first actual 5-on-5 engagement. At some point, Beltslap is going to hit the bedrock that is Phoenix, and Snake Pit is going to have to put up a defense. With this Cthulhu, with this Persephone, they have a lot of tools. Persephone's Bone Rush is going to be very good for keeping the minion wave out. Cthulhu is essentially a mobile no-play zone around him with all the constant CC coming through, as well as healing his own team. It's not going to be easy for Beltslap to siege through, but this is the largest lead that we've seen all game, 6,000. And Fire Giant on 5.
Beltslap have now taken every Tier 2 tower off the map, so truthfully, this is one of the most important moments of this game just yet. This left side Phoenix defense, 4-1 split. Johnny will push up the minion wave in mid. It looks like they're going to have Worst Turtle play in between to defend if Johnny actually looks for a split push to try and divide up the way this push is going. But Snake Pit kind of have their work cut out for them. Persephone, though, one of the best tools you can have on defense.
Absolutely. I like this positioning from Trickstank as well. He knows that Johnny can't win the 1v1 up against Worst Turtle at this point in the game. So Trix is kind of playing this hover role. Do I want to go into the center with Johnny? Do I go back over to the 4v4 on the left side?
What?
It's forced a rotation from Genetics as well.
How does it end up being just Trickstank there? I mean,
yeah.
He gets the mez, backs up, so no harm, no foul. Maybe could have even pulled a relic there had someone overreacted to the mez, but not the case. Snake Pit keep cool heads on their shoulders, and now Beltslap are suddenly pushing everyone down the middle lane all by themselves. They've all moved over here to start the push. Can Snake Pit, though, find the defense is the real question. As all the way in have gone Beltslap. Now Tarim, though, into the ultimate have pushed them back out. This push has failed. They got some decent defense in Myth. I don't know, man. Sieging into Cthulhu is tough.
It is, but all of a sudden not nearly as tough. Nemesis ultimate used, Persephone ultimate, Descent into Madness all down, whereas 4 ultimates still available to Beltslap. Now's the time.
But Trickstank gets grabbed instantly. What a play from Genetics, and he melts Johnny into the air way too late. Is going to look for a place to crash into the back line, but does not get the execute. Spudio gets a double as Arkkill has fallen, and now the patience from Snake Pit is starting to pay off. Zero's in trouble in the back as Julio does get 1 kill onto Angry, but can he defend his middle laner? There's no hope. 3 huge kills come through, make it 4 as Spudio steps on the gas.
But they weren't able to maintain their own Phoenix. That does fall. What is Snake Pit able to do with this huge bit of time? They can pick up a Primal Fury easily, sure. They can even potentially take down a Tier 2 tower, but I don't think they have the space to make it into a Phoenix. That is going to be a small win for Beltslap. Effectively, Snake Pit by themselves a much longer game. Now we have to wait till the next Fire Giant to see whether or not they can stop another siege.
Oh, the Tier 2 tower is where the action is for now, but Trickstank's back up. Arkkill won't be too far behind. We'll see how much Snake Pit look to try to take. But looks like just as you advised, they'll just take the Tier 2 tower and won't do anything crazy on the back of it. With Trickstank and Julio up, they're probably done. And look at this, Julio's chasing into the jungle. Luckily, no one on Snake Pit really turns around, so they get away with the shenanigans for now. But Pyromancer will be the call, and Spudio is shredding it. Julio has moved in. Trickstank is backing. Cancels the back to be there with his solo laner. I like the ideas. Julio continues to push up. Maybe he's just trying to deny the backs here. He's not going to actually hard commit.
Yeah, if he's able to deny their backs enough, it'll create space for him to move in towards the Fire Giant with the rest.
And we're back into the action. Sorry again for the interruptions, but we are right back into the battle. Looks like we did not miss much. Belt Slap are still set up right around side this Fire Giant, and Snake Pit are trying to find their way in. Julio has been willing to be kind of a wild agent with all this movement speed so far, Miff, so wouldn't be surprised if he does it again here.
He is. He has to operate as an iron wall, though. Belt Slap start up the Fire Giant, and Snake Pit have to work their way past this tier. Seems like it's going to be easier said than done.
Look where Johnny is as well. He's kind of pushed up in right, maybe looking for a bit of a flanker for a way in that Snake Pit aren't expecting. But Belt Slap dropped the objective for now, just back over towards Pyro, which is already down. And now maybe even trying to push a bit further forward. Johnny has found Worst Turtle, does not connect though with the silence, but they're all in. Julio pins 2 against the wall. Trickstank right there alongside him, but they don't get much off it. Julio, though, not going to miss out on that Relic much. He has Relic Dagger, but there's the grab from Genetics. Trickstank is low. Terrorum is in as well, and he's committed the ultimate. They need this to work out, and Julio is low, but also fast. He zoomed out, but Scare's Blessing is already onto Spudio to use more of the buff here than a save, as Angry's able to find 1 kill. Arco melts to Spudio's wrath as they find a second kill. Snake Pit are absolutely popping off in the late game.
That could be game. If they keep the push up, they won't let Trickstank back. He's going to have to give up this Phoenix defense. Snake Pit, 5 members strong, 100% health between all 5 of them. They might just go for the end here.
Wow, Myth, what a way for this game to end. Belt Slap played it slowly all game long, and now potentially a chance for that gamble to cost them everything here. Or at least 1 game in these finals. Mid-Phoenix has been shredded. Zeros, Julio, and Trickstank will stand between them and victory in this second game. And they already have the Titan down quite low. In comes a little extra support, but they've managed to get some members low. Terrum is already struggling. Zeros kills him. Spudio falls as well, but the Titan is so low they only need a little bit more damage.
Wow!
And there, Snake Pit are able to find the win over Belt Slap.
Tying up the set at 1-1. That's insane. An absolutely insane way to lose the game. Belt Slap had the defensive positioning around Fire Giant. They had everything going for them at engagement, but then a slight overstep, chasing a little bit too far into that right side jungle. Had they just waited, they had fire minion waves flooding down the center of the map. The minions were legitimately on the enemy Titan, but instead, they take a fight and lose the match. Unfortunate.
And it's great recognition from Genetics. He put the ultimate onto Spudio full HP, so my man can hit the gas so he can get in there. I mean, I don't know, man. What a call from them towards the end of the game to close that one out. Snake Pit have now evened this up. It'll be a quick break, then we'll have the Deaths try and break that down.
Another week or will we not?
Well, slow and steady wins the race this time around, although I don't know if that works out as well when both teams are slow and steady in that case. Either way, we get a very European style of Smite early on, and then late game things start popping off, Kiki, and not in favor of Belt Slap, not the way you would expect. I think everything feels close. There's that mid-Phoenix siege from Belt Slap, but at the end of the day, it is one really good pull from Genetics that just kind of keeps things going, and that really sets up the domino effect there for Snake Pit.
I really feel like maybe a little bit too much overconfidence by Zerhos' team. They weren't really trying to push any sort of lead. They have a Thanatos, but no early aggression. His first time getting an execute was around 20 minutes. So I really feel like they thought they had it in the bag, but Snake Pit held on to it, and they did not want to let this one slip by without putting up a fight.
And that was a really big discussion throughout it that, Mifflin brought up a couple of times, but, you don't see that execute Thanatos, an early game centric god, at least something that we're used to seeing that early, like you just said. Doesn't really get an execute until way later. That's the only kill that Johnny even gets throughout all of that. And there was just no early game pressure, and they had even discussed it, the kind of dynamic that we saw between these two teams and what we see out of teams like Ghost Gaming in the Pro League, which is where, you see early game pressure so prioritized because that's where XP and gold matter a lot. Is that something you want to see? I mean, Snake Pit, with a draft like that, they don't really care if it goes late game, do they? I mean, they're happy with it if that's what Beltslap want to do. But do you think you can afford to risk that every time? I mean, that one's just a coin flip, depending on who wins that fight.
See, the problem is you don't want to play with risk in mind. You want to try to get little wins where you can, but when you're playing in fear of risking things, that's when you end up having some sort of sleeper game like we just went through. Sure, they had a Kumba, but there was no setup early game. There just wasn't enough action. They did end up getting Gold Fury, but that won't amount to much. You need to look to strip away some sort of farm from the enemy if you want to push your lead.
Well, Snake Pit, I want to say, pleasantly surprising everybody. I think a lot of people were worried, especially because the last set was 2-0, that this one was going to end up being another just 2 games because of that advantage. We'll have to see if they can continue this streak as we move into game number 3 for the finals here. And now this is the other big thing, and I don't want to be the naysayer. I kind of hate it, but I have to follow trends, and I am looking at Phase 2 playoffs, Phase 3 playoffs, and Phase 1 playoffs for the SCC all year in Europe. And every single one of them is a 3-1 win for Beltslap. They always seem to drop one game. I don't know why, but they always drop one when it comes to finals. And so this is that chance. Again, a very important set for these teams. Winner gets to move forward to those Worlds brackets, play against the SPL teams, and try to make their shot at of being a world champion overall. They still have that capability here. And Beltslap can't afford to lose another one. I think the same thing could be said for Snake Pit here. In a best of 5, how important is Game 3, especially when it's tied up 1-1?
Yeah, this game right here, if whoever wins this game will feel like, wow, if I just win one more game, I'm going to Worlds. So the amount of hype and motivation that the players are going to be feeling at that point will really surmount to letting them play at a level where they feel is their best. I'm loving the tier ban because Julio on that tier was as slippery as can be. Almost harder to kill than a Hercules because Hercules can stumble sometimes, but with tier, you have the ultimate that will always secure you out or in. You see most tiers just dunking on themselves.
And it was actually fun. I think the way you word that is good because you compared it to the Hercules, right? And Julio's been playing that most often so far this tournament. And that's been the play style, which is, I think goes along with the tier of I'm going to just set up these guys around me. Except for the one game he was like 6-0. That was a little ridiculous. But otherwise, I'm going to set up these guys around me and let them get the kills. Otherwise, most of the bands pretty standard. The Capri, the Yamoja out of the support, Hell, and Persephone out of mid, and then that Apollo outside of the tier from Snake Pit. Rom first pick, and this has been the talk of the town. This Chang'e has been picked up for Zeros every single time,
Ooh.
but always for mid. Now it's paired along with an Aphrodite. So, let's see. What have we seen in the past? Is Afro mid Chang'e solo, or is it Afro support? What happens here?
I think Julio likes to play Afro. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Chang'e mid, Afro solo. Kind of weird. I feel like I feel like that's a little bit too much healing, a bit slow. You're letting Belt Slap have some sort of control over the game, but we did just see they had potential control over the game, but they really weren't looking to punish. And Belt Slap say, "Oh, you want to go late game? We're gonna lock in Cali. You didn't ban it, so I guess we're taking the late game again."
Not only that, I
Fun.
mean, look, I've been talking all tournament. And of course, this is going to be a game where Johnny goes like 0-7, doesn't do anything for Belt Slap. But I've been talking up Johnny's Kali all tournament, and he better prove it right here. Otherwise, I'll look the fool. Or I'll just send you some old VODs because he's done it pretty often so far. I mean, this is something that we don't see too often. We've seen banned a lot, but has not been played so far. And I was thinking Rom, Guan Yu, I was looking for maybe some pressure over here on Belt Slap's side. Like you said, the healers may be pushing it to a longer game. But that Kali makes me think that we're in for another 30-minute game.
Well, it is Europe, so I mean, if you thought it would
You
be
just
shorter
count
than
on it?
30 minutes, you know, like maybe one of them DCs or something. But we do see them lock in Circuit to counter the Cali. That's a really good option. If you Circuit ult towards the end of Cali ult, she won't get that heal. And if you're lucky, she usually dies to the poison if you time it really, really perfectly. But I don't know. I haven't really been too impressed with the Circuit as of late. I feel like she's been in the game for so long that people do know how to play against her. And if Belt Slap can pick up a cripple here, like an Ares or something, that'll really make her feel useless, honestly.
And that was something you had talked about earlier where we just saw Snake Pit specifically. They've been running a very heavy tank build on this Circuit, and so there's a lot of viability for her that you highlighted, but maybe a little bit of wiggle room that she might still have that large margin of error. Sobek, Ra, Jingwei, Heimdall, the 4 bans that come through. Cupid is the pickup for Snake Pit. Seems pretty solid all around, typically what we see in the Pro League when Rom's picked up on the other side. And I was not expecting this. I think we've seen it a couple of times. Prime was running it a little bit, although they've now been eliminated from the tournament. We've seen the Vulcan come through here in mid, but Yanis locked in. Outside of mobility and Venenu, Heroind in the Pro League, not a lot of people are playing this guy.
No, they're really not. His damage is inconsistent. I'm expecting Belt Slap to pick a decent damaging Guardian because you're up against 3 healers now. And Terra's a very good option. Her ultimate makes sure that you're going to hit your allies, are going to get the healing, and the enemies are going to be taking additional damage from the ultimate. So I love that pickup from Trixtank.
And I think Ankh is going to be the name of the game, probably for both sides now. Terra, Guan Yu on one, Shanga, Aphrodite, Cupid on the other. I don't know. And now with a Wukong being hovered,
Oh, man.
even some self-heals between that and the Kali. I don't know. This seems like it's going to be very heal-heavy, maybe difficult to find the kills, lots of action in the process. But this does beg the question now, once again, looking at Snakebite, Wukong support? Afro support? Like, where are they going?
I can't tell you. Their team comp does have good amount of CC, but a lot of it is single target. So you're really just letting Belt Slap do what they want right now. Single target stuns are great for Cali because you want to be sure you have some sort of CC once she blinks on you. If she can free cast for 3 seconds, she might just get a full heal and then clean up the rest of your team.
There's a lot of squishy targets. You can build tanky on some of those supports and that Circuit, as we've seen, but Kali doesn't seem to care too much about it, even on main tanks, the Guardians of the world, the Warriors of the world. So we'll see whether or not they're able to handle it. I mean, with Hera ults coming through, Yanis portals available, Kali and her capabilities of burning things down, is this something Belt Slap can run away with? Or do Snake Pit, because of the healing they have the capabilities of balancing the scales and keeping it even?
With the Janus portals, it's going to be really hard for them to reposition and find opportunities to get that out of combat healing. So with the perfectly timed Ankh, I can see Belt Slap just running through them.
Oh, that's going to be key then. We've seen a lot of relics sometimes get unused. Will Belt Slap be able to find the perfectly timed Ankh? We can only find out in Game 3.
Thank you, Goran, Kiki, Sylph, Finch, and Myth here with Doug providing the views as Snake Pit are all in on this set. Chang'e and Aphrodite. Angry taking Chang'e mid. Afro support for Genetics and Taram having Sun Wukong over there in solo like normal. Myth. I think Aphrodite support, not too bad. How is he going to look here, though, up against a pretty strong and normal draft from Belt Slap?
It can go one of a couple ways, right? They could get immediately blown out by the early pressure. If Afro falls pre-5, she'll probably continue to fall repeatedly until the end of the game. Or we could see both teams kind of play it a little bit more passively. Afro playing further back, just clearing waves, using the heals not only from her, but also from the Cupid as well. I'm kind of scared to say it, Finch, because I think I might will it into existence. This one could very easily be a repeat of Game 1 in that both teams have decent incentive to just farm for the first 35 minutes.
I'm right there with you, and look at the way that Genetics started here. No hog for him. It's a Mana Chalice, and then 4 multi-potions is the way to begin. The Mana Chalice makes a ton of sense. For Aphrodite, mana is health, right? Because more mana, more lovebirds, and she's just vibing again. But how do you like this start? I mean, they cleared pretty easily, even without the hog here, with that Aphrodite alongside Spudio. As Trixtank gets a bit aggressive, no chance, though, for any actual punish.
Yeah, I think it can certainly work. The true test is, if Genetics makes it to level 5 without dying, I think you've gotten perfect value out of the Aphrodite. But it's going to be hard to get to that point because of this.
Look at all the pressure. They hit level 2 first, and they're stepping on the gas, but Spudio and Genetics make it out of there pretty easily. No real need for them to overreact. Looks like Genetics did have to use the relic he took at level 1, and that was Sprint. It's Sprint from both of these. I think that makes sense if you're the team going into the Cupid, but what's Genetics looking for this Sprint for him?
I think it's just additional survivability. He doesn't really need to get a standard defensive relic. He's got the Afro ultimate once he ticks over to level 5, so he should be able to disengage relatively easily. I think Sprint really is just a team fight-oriented relic, and he wants to be able to either engage with his team or he wants to be able to disengage later on.
Wow, what could have easily been a 3-man collapse onto Worst Turtle instead fizzles out from one good Cobra's Kiss. He avoids the wall easily, interrupts any hope of Trixtank seeing him some other way, and just walks away. So not bad there from Worst Turtle with that little bit of action in the jungle. But so far, so good here for Genetics, but he hasn't had to deal with a gank. If Johnny makes his way over here, even early levels, Kali could certainly still cause some problems.
Absolutely. I think Kali's got one of the better level 3s. Her early game is notoriously bad, but level 1 through 3 absolutely can be a difference maker in these fights. The stun is just enough to displace the enemy team and set up for the kills here. I mean, the slow chaining from Rom, if we do get a Kali gank over here, is going to be very hard to deal with once this Heavenly's already been dealt with as well. I think that Belt Slap should be looking to shut down Aphrodite in the early game. Genetics essentially putting a target on his back with this pick.
He's certainly going to be a target, and Johnny, I mean, if Ao Kwang is his past, then Bakasur and Kali are his present, right? I mean, these are the picks that were basically permabanned from him the entirety of the SCC this year, if teams were trying to limit what Johnny could do. And this time, one of them were able to sneak right on through. He's got this Kali. Johnny on late game hyper carries is a tale as old as the SCC, man. He will tear you up if you make it that late into the game, to the point where Kali has a couple items online. I think Snake Pit, even with an Aphrodite and a Chang'e, there might be a timer on the other side just because of how good Johnny is on Kali.
Agreed, man. And he's got a decent matchup into the majority of Snake Pit's draft. Aphrodite doesn't have any mobility, so she'll be easy to chase down once he gets the haste and katana. Even Chang'e, once that 2 is down, is going to be pretty easy to lock down as well. Johnny's got a lot of ability to just chase down the majority of Snake Pit's draft, and with Death Immunity and the Ultimate Destruction, it's going to be incredibly hard to deal with.
And already Snake Pit are on the aggressive. Look at Worst Turtle coming through top side. I'm not sure if Belt Slap recognized, but right away, Arkle dips. I don't know if the same can be said for Trixtank, though, who can't get the dash through the pillar. First blood goes to Snake Pit, and look at this, Myth. They win Game 2. Remember, Belt Slap got the 1-game advantage, but now, here they find First Blood being active here in Game 3.
And it's a complete reverse of what we were expecting. I really thought it was going to be Johnny making the first rotation over to the duo lane to try and shut down the Aphrodite, but instead, an aggressive play from Worst Turtle, backed up by Genetics and Spudio, results in First Blood going their way. Trixtank doesn't even get to tick over to level 5 before he gets it back to base. It's a tough situation, but 1 kill makes not for a lead. It's only about 1,000-ish gold separating these two teams at this point. I think that Snake Pit have done enough, really. They've got this incredibly heal-centric composition. They don't need to play the aggressor. If anything, I would say potentially Belt Slap should, even though we do have Johnny on the signature Kali pick. If Snake Pit decide to just farm for the next 30 minutes, I couldn't fault them.
Yeah, I think they'd be totally comfortable doing that. The only good news for Johnny is, I think in Game 2, he was basically playing like he was on Kali, right? Just slowly going about the early game. and they're trying to get more involved past like the 30-minute mark. Good news is this time it's going to pan out even better for him. Kali will be a chainsaw once she gets all those items online. So Beltslap just got to make sure they get there, got to make sure they're set up in a position that they're a little bit ahead, and they can deal with all this sustain, all this immunity coming out from them. Is a big retreat from Beltslap in the duo lane, just with Genetics rotating in.
Yeah, it seems like they're very worried about some ganks coming through. Without the defensive warding, or aggressive warding rather, on the enemy side of the map, Beltslap doesn't really know where it's safe to stand at this point, especially considering Worcester has already ganked once in the pre-5 minutes, which is just about 100 times more than he did in the first 5 minutes of last game. So already, I'm loving the pace. I think that if anything, Snake Pit can choose to allocate their pressure into the 3v3 in mid, playing around the Circuit, and the Chang'e is going to have a lot of kill pressure into Zeros. If he ever portals in a lane or gets caught without his abilities, it should be easy to lock him down. And they don't have to worry about the jungler for Beltslap in the 3v3. Kali is going to be spending the entire time farming.
Exactly. It's time for Snake Pit, even though I'm not exactly confident they're going to be looking to be very aggressive anyway. It's just that Snake Pit can know that if they were to take those fights, it's likely they'll have a slight edge there. With an Afro Chang'e or Cap, that is kind of a nasty mid 3v3, but
Dirty.
maybe we're not giving enough credit over here to Zeros. He's piloting this Giannis, and I know that maybe you're not the biggest Giannis fan in the world, but this time it's in the hands of Zeros, one of the best mids we've ever had in this game. He's certainly got a chance to make some noise as a utility man and as an aggressor.
And he's doing a good job of utilizing Giannis in the early game. Every single time the opposite back camps are up of wherever Johnny's rotating, Zeros is using the mobility of Giannis to aggressively farm the jungle. He's got about a half-level lead over his opposition. Angry just ticks over to level 8 on that last wave. Zeros has been there for a little bit, and this is just it. He's been rotating throughout the jungle, splitting farm with Johnny repeatedly. Zeros is going to pull ahead eventually off this strategy, but I'm not sure how worth it is to set behind your Kali.
Yeah, you kind of do want to make sure that your Kali's getting as much farm as possible, but I think when you're on the team with Zeros, you kind of do what Zeros says sometimes. So if he wants that farm, that might be how it is. As Johnny gets caught out by Worst Turtle, who has just been the aggressor all game, though as long as Johnny has destruction, he's not in any danger. I'm sure Worst Turtle would have liked to at least trade those ultimates, but Johnny's so patient, doesn't overreact, and holds on to basically all his cooldowns.
But he does get a lot of pressure put on him as Zeros ults through, trying to defend the blue buff. That should be enough. That's a lot of utility used, but it should fizzle from here. Beltslap with a nice defense.
Good use of that Giannis portal, right? It gets him there quickly, he helps to defend, it even could serve as an escape route, as a great wall over in the dual lane might have set Beltslap up for just what they needed. Undying Love, though, is the response, so Genetics lives easily, and Spudio might have a return kill, but can't find it. Too good of the jukes coming out from Tricksink on the other side. Now the snipes, but no way, are catching up to an Aphrodite. She's too fast. Wow, action over in dual lane. We don't normally see him scrapping like this.
It's been a long time since I was allowed to say it. Trickstank played it perfectly and got punished for it. He hits the double stun. He finds the ultimate, the double root. That's max damage potential, but the healing from Genetics was just a little bit too much to deal with. There wasn't enough follow-up from Oracle. It's a tough situation, man. I mean, Undying Love gets used. You don't get to deal damage to that either. It's just a hard situation for that. You miss the opportunity if you're looking to shut down Genetics. He's already over to level 8. This man is survivable at this point.
Man, that's the tagline for when you're playing against Aphrodite. You might play it perfectly, but you're gonna get punished, man, because she's pretty good right now. Has so many tools at her disposal, and Genetics uses them all very well to escape. Spudio even had a chance to get a return kill there, just couldn't land quite enough autos there on the tail end, and Tricksink was able to weave his way out of there. But if you're Beltslap, no way you can underestimate Genetics and Spudio after what they just accomplished for you. All the relics were used on both sides, so make sure you're giving them their respect, as they might be the ones getting in a trap. I know they think they're trapping Arkle, but Zeros is here behind, but he gets hit by the Field of Love. That's so unlucky. They lose a great opportunity, but he lands the portal. They get the root. I don't think Genetics can make it out of this one. Got aggressive at the wrong time, and Arkle has the punish.
And no counter rotation. That's the value of Giannis. That's why you want Zeros ahead. He's playing that secondary jungle role with that counter gank. Fantastic. Just a little bit of an overzealous rotation from the Snake Pit. Luckily, Genetics' ultimate does come back in time to get out of the portal, but not in time to save his life. Good rotations. Beltslap getting a little bit of wake at the wheel now.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that plan was going to work for Snake Pit, right? I mean, Arkle was... He was basically a sitting duck for them over there if they'd been able to walk up to him with no purification beads and with the ultimate having been used in their last skirmish. But Zeros has his head on a swivel, man. He saves that whole engagement, and they get a good kill into the Afro. But Myth, I know your timeline for let's get him by the 5-minute mark. Is this kill at level 8, not the 5-minute mark, but at level 5? Is this kill at level 8 going to be enough to slow Genetics down?
I don't think it will be. I mean, if you even just take a peek at the levels between Genetics and Trixtank, they're about even. But any kill you can get onto Aphrodite, any slowdown that you can find to make sure that that build isn't coming through instantly is going to be helpful. But at this point, she's already got parity with the majority of the enemy team. Beltslap is going to have a very hard time killing her. Even in the last engagement, it was a clean kill,
right,
but we got to see how much they had to use. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of things kind of did work out for Snake Pit, though, right? Undying Love, or not Undying Love, but the Fields of Love, I believe, catching out Arkle there towards the tail end and saving them. But look at Snake Pit's awareness. You guys may have had the rotation for the kill, but we've got the rotation to Gold Fury, and Beltslap are just asleep at the wheel here. No one aware, no one gets there in time, and Snake Pit just take it.
You know, that's a running trend in this set as Johnny tries to get aggressive on a Tarim on the opposite side of the map. Every single objective that has fallen between Beltslap and Snake Pit here has gone down uncontested. No defense from the enemy team. It's always been a cheeky sneak away, or they win a fight before they go into the objective, but so far, we haven't seen the standard Smite dance of the Gold Fury, or the Fire Giant for that matter.
Right, I mean, there may have been some fights near them, but at the end of the day, when the team takes it, they're taking it with no contest around it, has been the thread throughout this entire set here so far. So now Snake Pit enjoy about a 2,000 gold lead. It might be the first time they've led all set, even though they won game 1. I don't know if they were ever feeling comfortable with the way that the gold lay in those games. So about 2,000 or so experience, 2,200 gold going in their favor. I wasn't expecting Snake Pit to come in being aggressive the way they have, looking for these Gold Furies and looking for ganks, but it's been working for him, and now Genetics has a great lead in the support role.
Yeah, last time around in Game 2, technically, because of the one-game lead from coming in from winner's side,
right,
we saw this exact same gold lead mirrored at the 28-minute mark, but at 12 minutes, 2,000 gold is actually a very large lead. Now, Snake Pit should have the advantage if they want to group up around the Pyromancer, play aggressively in duo, as we're seeing right now. I want to see them keep up this pressure, even if they don't necessarily have to because of how strong they are in the late game. Now is a very good opportunity for them to grow it even further.
It absolutely is. If Snake Pit wants to pull the trigger on some aggression, we'll keep our eye on thinking on Worst Turtle and Genetics. They've been the ones setting the pace, the aggressors so far. So wherever they go, Snake Pit are likely to follow. And Worst Turtle, not completely leaning into this Tank Circuit build, though the Thorns might belie that it's coming, right? Sledge into Void Shield is how we've seen these Circuits built so far. And now that he has that Thorns, I'm thinking we'll likely see some more defensive items come out there for Worst Turtle.
Yeah, likely a Mantle, potentially even a Gladiator Shield coming through. This is about standard for what Worst Turtle's been doing throughout the entirety of the weekend. And I like this build a lot. He's not sacrificing damage in the early game because he's got the true damage on the ultimate. Sledge scales incredibly well, and he's not picking up a mace, but he's making up for that penetration through Void Shield. I think it's a very intuitive build, and it should allow him to get aggressive as long as he wants to.
They still do have this big barrier in the late game, though, of how they're going to deal with Johnny. This Kalia Zeros ends up low. He has to use the beads as well, but he does manage to escape. He does hold on to his ultimate, but Worst Turtle looks like he's still on the hunt. Zeros should be far enough away for that back to go through this time, though, and it does indeed happen that way. But I like the way that Worst Turtle's playing this. He has been putting pressure on the Zeros. I think he even used the ultimate to try and lock him down.
He did, but Worst Turtle's spending so much time just going through the enemy jungle or looking for these ganks that he's now starting to lose the lead that he established for himself over Johnny. Johnny now level 13 to Worst Turtle's level 12. This aggression, it's the double-edged sword. If you want to look for these ganks continuously, I mean, Johnny's just farming up the jungle. He's going to pull ahead.
Oh, but this is how you capitalize, but they don't have the damage. Zeros just walks away. He didn't even have beads that time. Looks like Aegis is what saved his life, but they have been putting pressure on this Giannis, and that is exactly what the doctor ordered.
It really is, but Zero's so slippery. It's a lot of pressure, but it hasn't resulted in a kill just yet. They burned through the majority of his defensive options, the ultimate, the relics. The ultimate is back up now, but they should be looking to have Worst Turtle rotate through, use the ultimate, and find the blink. There's a lot of time now where Zeros is going to have to play incredibly safe, and unfortunately for Beltslap, it's kind of coinciding with the Gold Fury respawn in this next minute. If Snake Pit group up on it, those relics won't be available for Zeros.
That's exactly right. Zeros has been kind of pulling off some heroics with this ultimate so far throughout this game. But even with the ult, he's got to be safe. He's got the CC immunity and a lot of escape, but you certainly don't want to be put to that test up against a Circuit, right, or a Chang'e that can catch you off guard. If you get hit by the Waxing Moon, doesn't matter how cool the ultimate is, right? As Zeros uses the ultimate defensively, but he's been caught out exactly as anticipated, but it wasn't enough damage. Tarim, though, is the one that closes the gap, and Zeros will not escape.
40 seconds left on that spawn, uses the ultimate before he dies, so it's going to be a slow rotation of the Gold Fury. Johnny tries to get value on the opposite side of the map, is able to strip away the Fields of Love, but that's just about it. Spudio still healthy.
Doesn't even feel like committing to genetics there as he makes his way back underneath the tier 1 tower, but they're going to look for a collapse. Trixang's going to come across the top side. At least he's posturing like he does. He's biding his time, waiting on an opportunity. Arkel's here as well, and they are going to commit to this dive. No, it's just time expended without actually trying to commit for it. Worst Turtle takes the tier 1 in mid, and Beltsap really don't get much of anything except for taking Spudio's ult a while ago.
That's nice. Johnny is officially online at this point. He's got Haste and Katana. He's got the kin size. He should be shredding anyone he comes into contact with. Unfortunately, he just hasn't had an opportunity to fight around his team. It seems like Snake Pit is doing a fantastic job of controlling the map. And again, a Gold Fury is pulled, and the only one in range to defend is Trix.
And these supports are not going to be able to steal it on their own, not with last breath used. Beltsap, though, taken at the last minute. Some help came from the top side, and it was desperately needed. But I think Snake Pit are angry. They're looking for the fight on the back side of it as Trixtank is low and Worst Turtle's keeping up the chase. But he's got a Guan Yu at his back, and the Death Bane wasn't enough. The ambush wasn't either. Spudio seals the deal, but it costs Worst Turtle his life. Now Julio has gotten a 2-man stun on the back of the ultimate. But at this point, Snake Pit are looking for the retreat. But Beltsap want to keep them in this. The ultimate is enough for Tarim to make it out, but I don't think you can afford to lose the Gold Fury there.
Yeah, let that be a lesson. No one sneaks away with a Gold Fury 6 times in a row in a set against these guys. Finally, Beltsap able to rotate in. Trixtank, I believe, was the one to steal it away with the third ability on Terra. And now neutral objective goes the way of Beltsap. Fight would arguably go the way of Beltsap as well, trading out their support for the jungle. Worst Turtle, who is already starting to fall behind Johnny, is now going to fall even further.
Oh, hello, Arkel. You got to use your Aegis to get out of there. Still gets hit by the Heart Bomb stun. Not enough for the kill. But my man is uncomfortable with all his relics down. And this is so tough, man. I think Angry used the Waxing Moon a bit early to try and make sure he stunned out Trixtank with it. Probably their best confirm here at this point, but Snake Pit have got to make sure that when those objectives are a bit more contested, they're using those ultimates and they're confirmed at the right time. Good news is, though, they're still in a great spot. They're even across the board. Spudio is ahead. Angry is ahead. The only place they have a big disparity is with Worst Turtle, but he can still do a lot of his job even from behind.
And his build is also facilitating that. He doesn't need to have the lead because he's so much tankier. Even if he engages, the true damage is going to find its value. It's still going to be incredibly hard to lock him down as well because it's a Circuit, one of the most mobile gods in the game. It is unfortunate Johnny does have as large a lead as he does if you are a Snake Pit fan, because we got to see a little bit taste of it there. He got to make contact with Terrarem around that Gold Fury, and it took about 2 seconds to work through 60% of his HP bar.
Johnny's made it. You said he was there at that late game status when he finished off the Hastened and the Kin size. He's only going to get scarier from here as Worst Turtle is lurking over in duo. And there's looks like to be action brewing on the right side of the map. Worst Turtle's got to find something here because if things kick off and he's not there to help in ranked, he could really be punishing. But things fizzle on both sides. Worst Turtle doesn't go for anything, neither does Beltsap on right. No, I'm wrong. They're going to go for the tier 1 tower here in right, and Tarim can't defend this one on his own, so there is something collected from Beltsap fresh on the right side.
He's going to give that one up. Worst Turtle makes the decision to give up on that gank because it was such a tight timing on Arkel's beads. He had about 5 seconds once we saw him first over there, so instead doesn't take the risk, doesn't want to lose out on his life, and regroups with his team trying to defend whatever they can. But now neutral objectives are down for the next 2 minutes. Gold Fury, that is. No towers available inside of mid for Snake Pit to push either. Means that they likely won't be grouping there. We might see them try and use this lead that they still have to group up around the Pyromancer. But even then, it seems like, as far as solo lane goes, Julio's been having a very good run of it. He's had decent control. He's been rotating these team fights first. I think Snake Pit might be routed for a little bit until this Gold Fury respawns.
They'll need a bit of a neutral objective to fight around to set this off. So we've made it into the 20-minute mark. Maybe with a little bit more action but not all that different here in the state of the game. It's still about that 2,000 gold difference between the two teams, but I mean, as we round 20 minutes, it's just not going to make that big of a difference here between these two teams. What is going to make a big difference is how they choose to go about these fights, and how Snakepit is going to have to rely on Worst Turtle to be more of a setup guy than a damage guy for them. So that puts a lot of pressure into Angry and Spudio to be in position to capitalize, or else they're just not going to have the damage.
And Chang'e is not the first god that comes to mind when you think of a constant, huge burst damage. He's not your average mage. He's more a consistent bit of a smaller burst, almost like a combat mage style. So it's going to have to be Angry sticking in his team fights a lot longer. You're going to be completely reliant on AoE from Spudio, most likely, once he goes into that oboe. It's going to be a very hard-fought team fight for Snakepit because it's so execution-centric. I think the strategy really will revolve around Versatile blinking in, finding the ultimate, and whoever he ults is going to need to die nearly instantly if Snakepit want to take these fights.
Look at this, Beltsap now making their way over to Pyromancer. This will be their second objective of the game since they did steal away that Fury not too long ago. So not bad by Beltsap, kind of cutting into that lead a significant amount, only about 500. That separates the teams now. If the 2,000 wasn't much, well then 500 sure ain't either, as Julio gets a bit aggressive in mid. Not going to hard commit though. This next fight is going to happen around this Fury that's spawning in 10 seconds.
I think it should, but whoever gets there first is likely going to have the advantage. Trixtank trades out a little bit of his health bar, and the Yanis ultimate, that's huge. Now Zeros is going to be completely hampered in this next team fight.
Yeah, if I'm Snakepit, that feels like go, doesn't it? Trixtank gets like a waxing moon, and the Field of Love, a heavy commit on the Trixtank. Let's see if Snakepit get punished for using that many ultimates onto the tank. I mean, that's 3 of them on cooldown. So yeah, they used that Giannis ultimate earlier, but they should have 3 great ones at their disposal.
They do, but they don't have the grouping. It seems like Beltslap aren't willing to step up. Oni Fury goes the way of Snakepit absolutely for free. And I agree with you, Finch. I think that Beltslap certainly had the opportunity to fight their way in there. Cavalry charge to engage. Johnny still has destruction as well, and he is an absolute menace at this point, picking up the Toxic Blade to deal with the healing from Genetics. I think that Beltslap may have showed a little bit too much respect there.
Maybe so, but as long as they choose to kind of regroup back up soon, they won't lose too much. But Snakepit take the opportunity to group up and take care of the tier 1 over and left as well. So they're kind of capitalizing off that investment of resources. It looks like using Waxing Moon, Fields of Love, and Last Breath was the right call as they managed to grab the Fury and that tier 1. Now, though, this will all become about the Fire Giant, plus these Oni waves that Beltslap will have to deal with. Looks like they'll deal with the one in mid and in right easily, and they'll have Arco stick around. Like he was backing, but he'll cancel that to go over and deal with the ones in left. So the Oni waves aren't going to matter too much here in the end.
It won't. Now it's all about the vision battle. Who can get the vision advantage around the Fire Giant? Who can strip away this tier 1 tower if you're on the side of Beltslap? That tier 1 in mid is going to be so impactful around these Fire Giant dances. If Snakepit want to retreat, they're going to have an additional bastion of safety. That same luxury not afforded to Beltslap as theirs fallen quite a bit ago. But it seems like both teams aren't really willing to start the dance off proper. Instead, it seems like Snakepit wants to continue pressure on the map and potentially find a pick before they work their way into the neutral objectives.
And they're still heading over to their lanes here, aren't they? At least Spudio and Arkle are. Man, that's the ADC mentality to the truest, ain't it? I ain't leaving my lane till I'm 20. You can't make it happen any sooner than that. But I think this makes some sense. There's not that much pressure on the Fire Giant just yet. So you might as well take this opportunity here to farm. This pace is a little bit elongated from what we most might see in some of these other games, right? So feel free to get a little bit of that lane farm here until you're actually needed over by the FG.
Yeah, there's an age-old adage, Finch, that Fire Giant decides games, and has it never been truer than in European Smite? It seems like Fire Giant is the only objective that's able to differentiate these squads. It empowers them and makes them willing to make these more aggressive plays. I don't think we're going to see any more tower siege attempts until this Fire Giant falls. It's really going to come down to which team gets picked first, and whoever does, with how close the match is right now, only about 1,500 gold separating the team, should be enough to get them a Fire Giant and then potentially prime them to work their way into the enemy base.
I wonder if they'll maybe push the issue this time, knowing that Zeros' ultimate is down. Great work there from Angry to get that out from him, but Angry used Blink and his ultimate to get that from Zeros. I guess Zeros read it because he didn't have to use beads to escape. He reacted with the ultimate, it must have been. So Snakepit maybe not coming into this with much of a significant advantage after all. They're just heading back over to the side, staying spread out.
Yeah, they're just biding their time, gathering power, powering up. It took Goku like 17 episodes to get ready to fight Frieza, okay? So I wouldn't rush Majesty. Snake Pit is, however, going to be the second team to the Fire Giant pit. Belt Slap from behind have the defensive positioning.
Yeah, it looks like they're setting a bit of a trap with 3 members waiting behind the Pyromancer wall, and Johnny maybe looking like a bit of a treat over there on the right side to be with a bait that kind of lets the trap snap closed. He's biding his time, now battling up against Tarum, and Snake Pit committed for a waxing moon! Hits everybody! That is how Chang'e can decide to fight at times, but it is not over. Up to the sky with Arkle. These snipes better hit home. Looks like he went for maybe one and then dropped back down. Excuse me, man, if I thought we might be seeing a little bit more happen there, but Snake Pit take that waxing moon and head back toward the FG rather than committing onto an actual fight.
Yeah, both teams take their licks here, but it's only one team that has to send someone back to base. Johnny returns. Now he's going to have to work his way forward, whereas Snake Pit are utilizing the healing. Yeah,
we've got a Chang'e and an Aphrodite, so we can stick around. They start up the Fire Giant as a bit of a bait this time, as Julio and Trick take a ton of damage. Tarum goes up to the sky to heal for the moment, while Snake Pit continue to sustain in the back. Zeros nearly kills Tarum, and Johnny gets the job done. What about Belt Slap finding a way back in off of great play from the mid laner? Johnny gets a double kill, and he's close to getting a third. Arkle is the one that finishes off as Johnny is low, but Johnny survives it all. Belt Slap have the absolute punish at the tail end of that fight.
And we knew what the strategy was from minute 1. Johnny locked in Kali, and he set his eyes on the 25-minute mark, finally getting involved in a fight, finally making his stamp known on the game, absolutely shredding the backline of Snake Pit, and now the game is going to get differentiated. Fire Giant goes the way of Belt Slap, 5 members strong, and there's 5 towers left on the side of Snake Pit to strip away. That's so much gold just waiting to be collected.
There's no way Johnny was a part of a triple kill just now and now has 2-0-1 on the slash line, right? He wasn't 0-0 before that fight. There's no chance, right?
Was.
Okay, I gotta accept the reality. That's what the math told me. I just didn't want to internalize it, I suppose. But hey, I mean, things worked out for them just as you said. I do think Zeros was pretty critical there. He hit that unstable vortex that put Tarum low enough for Johnny to kind of start the engine on that Kali, but they're definitely going to need that to happen a couple more times. I know they got FG, but they're still not out of range of Snake Pit to contest.
Yeah, they've got 5,000 gold in pocket, essentially. That's a huge swing for Belt Slap now. Back to base, spend it up, regroup. They can strip down the towers, back up to the Gold Fury. I think Belt Slap now are in a position where they don't even necessarily need to pick up a Phoenix to get full value out of this Fire Giant. That's how much neutral gold that they've already collected on the map, and that is left to be collected. If they strip away 2 more towers, get gold, they're going to be, what, nearly 10,000 gold up, ready and primed for the next Fire Giant. Snake Pit are going to have a much harder time with their draft as well, trying to work their way into a defensive position that Belt Slap set up. They don't have a standard engaged support. Instead, it's more so they need this Aphrodite to be in a defensive position and force Belt Slap to work into them if they want true value out of her.
We'll see how Snake Pit function on that difference, man. I'm just thinking about that last fight. If I'm angry, then I'm angry, right? I mean, how many times do you hit a 3-man waxing moon and you guys lose the fight after that? That's about as good as it gets from Chang'e, reasonably, at this level. We'll see if maybe he can repeat that magic, though. Might be a bit easier when everyone's funneled in underneath these Phoenixes. Tier 2 in left goes down. Last one standing is the Tier 2 in mid, and Belt Slap ready to make an attempt at the Seeds, try and go up 2-1 on the path to Worlds to compete with the top teams in the SPL to try and move forward. Johnny will be the one that closes out the Tier 2 tower in mid as well.
Who are they gonna send to stop Johnny? It seems like it's gonna be Circuit,
Yeah,
but that's
luck.
not a 1v1 that you win. That's why Terrorum's kind of hovering around. Now Zeros joins him in mid as well.
Yeah, it ends up being a 3-2 split here from Belt Slap, and Snake Pit match it for the most part, but Zeros is lining up for a big through space and time when he was hiding around that corner. Looks like maybe he's given up on it and will rejoin the team in left. So now, a 4-1 split. They still leave Johnny over in mid. Zeros is kind of moving between. He'll go wherever he thinks that he's got the best opportunity to cause some damage.
Absolutely. Now it's going to be a slow push from here. Snake Pit have the advantage of being able to match the sustain from Fire Giant with their draft, Chang'e and Aphrodite, but Belt Slap not going to leave it up to him.
Yeah, Fields of Love really only hits Trick's tank, and through space and time hits no one, but Tarum is melting all of the same barely gets up to the sky with that ultimate, so he is still alive for now. The last time Phoenix healthy as well. But now Belslap's moving in completely, and there's not enough front line here to stop them. They take the left side Phoenix handily, and Snake Pit melted under the pressure.
Did anyone hit anyone on the side of Beltslap there? They're all 100% HP. I think Trickstank maybe take a couple Phoenix shots, but no true defense from Snake Pit. They took a little bit of damage and then immediately disengaged, made way, and gave up the most important Phoenix on the map, the one furthest away from the Fire Giant, therefore the hardest to defend if you want to contest subsequent Fire Giants.
And losing that Fire Giant fight, that might have been it for Snake Pit, huh? I mean, I don't know. I'm so disappointed. It felt like Snake Pit had a real chance when they were in that Fire Giant fight. I'm still in that moment where Angry starts the fight off with a sick waxing moon. That's where my heart left this set, huh? Because, I mean, that's where it turned around in this game as Beltslap found a way to win anyway. And now with that left side Phoenix Siege, with them 12k gold up here in the late game, and with Johnny being unmatched by anyone on the side of Snake Pit, it's going to be tough for them to find a way back into this one.
Finch, it's a 3-second stun. It's a 1 second, 2 second, and 3 second stun that Angry lines up for his team. It's not often that you get to see that, even in casual play, ranked play. Chang'e ultimates do not often collat that many people, and unfortunately, Angry and his squad weren't able to optimize on it. And even then, I believe it was Trickstank that took the 3-second stun, so maybe it was a little bit harder for them to confirm the kill onto him. But they should have been able to at least make use of the fact that they were able to force Johnny back to base. It was a 5 versus 4 for about 15 seconds, essentially. But the second Johnny made it back, that Fire Giant went the way of Beltslap easily. It seems like Snake Pit now is going to be in a position where they're not willing to put up a defense around the Fire Giant proper. I think, if anything, we might see them do exactly this. Death ball through mid, see if they can catch someone straggling. But as far as I'm concerned, the best place they could take a fight is under their own Phoenix.
I agree. I don't know if I want to take a fair fight against Beltslap right now, and it's not even fair because Worst Turtle isn't even here. The 4-man grouping's in trouble. Cursedog is already out, and Genetics is taking damage. Tarim has to use the ultimate quickly and defensively as Beltslap have put out the pressure, but Tarim leaps in, trying to follow, but it's working. Angry has the damage. Zero has to retreat, and Arkle is a distant memory in the rear view. Now, how are they going to keep the rest of the team alive? Julio's already melted. Johnny cannot find the reset either, and Angry is on the hunt. I gave up on Snake Pit too soon, as they found a way to bring the trap home.
Are we getting a repeat of Game 2? They might just go ahead and attempt the end. They have so much healing. Yes, this has to be an end attempt because nobody is backing to defend their own Titan against the waves. It's 40 seconds left on the nearest respawn. I think Snake Pit won it.
Yeah, Zero's is going to have to pull off some magic here, isn't he? Because it's just him and Trickstank to try and keep this game alive. Snake Pit have melted the middle Phoenix. I don't know what happened to them back there, but they got to be quick because the Titan is low in the back. The minion pressure is too much. They have to move up the pace and get onto this Titan quickly to try to outdo what the minions are doing on the other side. You are right. There's barely any time on the clock for them to win this race, but now they're getting low. Trickstank has the stun on the Spudio in the back. Zeros even gets a kill on the Tarim. The unstable Vortex is too much damage, but Snake Pit have the Titan too low here at this point. They are able to commit, and Beltslap weren't able to do enough to close this one out. Snake Pit are now up 2-1 over Beltslap.
Stinky situation, man. What is that? You can't do that twice to Beltslap, the team that is nigh undefeated throughout the entire year. You're going to sneak away and win 2 games in a row, 10k down? Absolutely insane, man. If Beltslap wasn't tilted after Game 1, these guys are perpendicular to the ground at this point. They look like my paintings back there. My mental would never recover. I'm shattered. Best of luck, Zeros, man. That's tough, dude. Tough.
I mean, Alpha Deckle told us after Game 1, hey, be on the lookout for the mentals of Beltslap right now. They can't be great. AJ, you're looking pretty good right now after Game number 2. And what happened in that mid-fight, Myth? Was it Angry hitting another sick ultimate? It was so much damage so quickly, I didn't even see what happened.
It's just Angry got a Peel ultimate that hit 3 people again, by the way, something that I had just finished saying does not happen often. I mean, that's like a once-a-week thing for all Chang'es on the planet. Angry makes it happen twice up against one of the best, if not what it was hailed as, the best European SCC team. Insane play. I mean, what do you do about that situation? Beltslap did everything right, man. They got their Kali to late. They came up 10k. They stripped away the best Phoenix to strip, and they lost anyway. Tough.
Angry trying to guarantee a win for his team. Had to do it twice, but in the end, they get the dub. And now they're up 2-1 up against the best team here in the EUSCC. It'll be a quick break, and we'll be back for maybe the conclusion of this set after all.
Well, that game was an absolute doozy, and I need a couple of seconds to collect myself. And while I collect myself, I'm going to tell you about a way that you can link up with some other guys and or talk about other players, the game Smite, I guess, with other players, and play around with them by joining our official Discord, discord.gg/SmiteGame. You pop it into your browser. It'll open it up either in the client or in the browser, wherever you happen to be logged in, and you can join the Discord as well. Again, look for squads. You can link up, talk about Smite, and if you have any bugs or feedback, there's sections for that as well. And of course, you can always join, tag Jithens, and tell him to drink some water. It's something that we really desperately need. The man is unhealthy. We've got to fix it. And now that I've gotten all that out, we can turn back and focus on something else that is a little unhealthy right now, and it is Belt Slap's reputation on the line. I mean, 2 games in a row, Snakepit have been winning, Kiki. I don't know what to think.
Well, you have Belt Slap being unhealthy. You have the other team remaining super healthy with their 4 healers, I think they had on that comp. I mean, it's just really hard to try to punish when you have so much self-sustain, and really great job by Snakepit. You see there at the end of that Fire Giant, they actually funneled them into the lane while Worst Turtle was looping around in the jungle. So great communication by them. Worst Turtle ends up finding the 1v1 on Cali, and I touched on if you ult at the end of Cali's ult, you have the opportunity to kill her with your ult, and that's what Worst Turtle ends up doing, and that secures them the win. Great job by him.
I mean, just so many good plays throughout this one that realistically come through. And we're going to be highlighting Snakepit here, but don't forget Tricksnake had a really sick Gold Fury steal at one point, being able to come in. But Angry, with just one of the biggest ults there in mid, as you were just highlighting it, led his team to the water they needed to drink from to find victory there. And even though it's low kills, they come out on top. And look, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there just because I feel like it was worth highlighting earlier. The last time Belt Slap had lost 2 games in a set was against the Poppies in the Phase 2 playoffs, and they had lost that one because it was a best of 3, but they've not been down like this before in a finals. This is a new territory for them. Coming in with that winner's advantage, they technically have not won a game this set through play, and now you're down 1 game, and you had mentioned it coming into this last one. That's great for Snakepit. Now they're hyped. They're 1 win away from Worlds and 1 win away from beating a team that they've never played. I mean, how do you think their emotions are right now?
Well, I feel like Snakepit maybe planned for this. Their last time that they played, they ended up picking Jing Chen, Guan, and Circuit. But this time they completely changed it up. So I feel like they were holding some picks, and now they are really throwing Belt Slap for a surprise. And I'm just not sure what Belt Slap can do. Maybe look to get that Chang'e, or maybe they could even just ban it because it seemed to work out for the other team as well.
Keeping everything in the pocket up until you need it again. The most important set these 2 teams have played thus far this year, because it can lead to so much more and so many opportunities at the other end of it. And Snakepit are now literally just 1 game away from a huge upset over Belt Slap and being able to go forward into the World Championship for Smite, at least into that initial qualifying area with the 3rd through 8th SPL team. A lot of big names that could be joining there. Belt Slap, I mean, back's against the wall. You got to turn it around now. What do you change? I guess try to stop them from getting so many healers, but who expects Chang'e Aphrodite?
Definitely not me. I mean, I love healers. Trust me. I play healers in every game, but I would never want to run 4 healers. But Snakepit really just proved me wrong. You cannot have too many healers as long as you have the right coordination. They're going to be sticking with the Apollo ban. I wonder if they'll let Cali go through again. It was doing all right, but with the amount of single target stuns that they had, they were easily able to control her, not giving them much opportunities. And Tricksnake on that Terra was getting properly punished. They were always engaging on him properly and not giving them a chance to even engage.
Well, like you said, Apollo, the Umoja, Persephone, Kepri on the other side. Typically, this has been Sobek for Snakepit, and we'll have to see if they continue that route, although it will be Belt Slap that have to choose their poison first, what they're going to try to get rid of. It feels like there's a lot on board. Hell has been that option pretty much all day. Haven't got to see virtually any of her played so far. You can see down there, 54% of the bans so far in Wildcards have been this Hell. So being able to sit up there and the Sobek joins her, I mean, the world is your oyster. Guan Yu's available, Chang'e's available, and she's been highly contested this set. I wouldn't actually be surprised if Beltslap maybe try to scoop it up first.
I'm just laughing at the Sobek ban. I mean, Trixtank must be really good on the Sobek ban. He's never going to get Sobek. Really unfortunate if he was practicing it a lot prior to this. But that does give Beltslap the Chang'e, which it just goes to show God does not have to be that great as long as someone is comfortable on it. Chang'e has that inbuilt anti-heal into her kit, 50%. So with the amount of healers in this game, feels really good, but that does leave open the Ra.
We haven't got to see this Ra at all. Like, I feel like he's just been banned. Maybe he's been played a couple times. I do have some Ra highlights in my head, but I mean, he's been banned a majority of it, and this is the first time we're getting to see this set him scooped up. And he's one of the healers we haven't gotten to talk a whole ton about. I mean, Aphrodite comes in, Chang'e's been hanging out, Hell's been banned. Ra comes into this. I mean, is he going to be enough of a healing? Like, can he contend with the Chang'e in that aspect?
Well, Ra has a much better laning phase than Chang'e. His clear is really good. He has the passive, which gives him movement speed to keep on hyper farming. But if Chang'e can get any sort of early lead, depending on his jungler, he can usually snowball that. And with the Hercules, that's going to leave Ra in a weird position. If he ever gets plucked, he's just a dead cooked chicken.
Well, Akali didn't necessarily win, but it did have some good moments in that last game. Unfortunately, I think I heard Mifflin say it at one point, 25 minutes in was when we really got to see anything happen with this Kali. You had mentioned it last time in Picks and Bans when I asked if you think that's going to last long enough, if the game will go long enough, and you said it's Europe, so I'm going to go ahead and supply that. It's Europe, so theoretically this Kali will hit that late game portion, especially alongside a Hercules, a Chang'e. It's a lot of sustain that comes up, a little bit of self, a little bit of team, and this is one of the first phases that Guan Yu notably hasn't gone up in the top as well. Serket, Jingwei, Ra on the other side for Snakepit. I mean, out of these top three, do you have a team that you think has maybe more comfort picks or something that's going to be able to do this? Can Snakepit theoretically win?
I think it's definitely possible. I mean, you know, with the Kelly, she's good and all, but I feel like better teams should look for the early game, which Beltslap, they haven't lost a set in how long? But they're giving the enemies a small chance for them to make some sort of opportunity happen, and we'll just have to see if the Herc and the Chang'e can control the early game.
Yeah, it's been about 6 months since Beltslap have lost a set, and since they've been down at all in a set. So this is definitely interesting. The Ganesh, the Terra banned away from Snakepit, or banned away from Beltslap by Snakepit, the way that you would want it. Guan Yu, Aphrodite taken away. Not someone that we've seen banned virtually at all this weekend. One game played, and then immediately taken off the board. This tier gets locked in, taken away from Julio, although he already had the Hercules, so probably not his poison that he wanted. And this ROM's coming through. I mean, it's not necessarily standard. It's not the way things have been going and what we expected out of it based on earlier today's set. But Serket has been kind, Jingwei has been kind, Ra's been kind. This Kumba comes back for Beltslap. But I don't know. How do you feel about the 5 Beltslap have locked in?
So far, they have a lot of control. They have 4 beads burners. But the only thing that I'm really worried about is their burst. We do see that Zero Host prefers to go more of a sustain type of Chang'e with the Soul Gem into Ethereal, which just gives them, it lacks the burst that you really want off of an ultimate like Kumbhakarna. And with genetics on Jing Chen, that's going to make them kind of really hard to pin down. They have multiple setup for the Ra, and I love that the tier now has a disarm, which will come into play when Kali is diving the carries.
Yeah, be able to save the carries like you just highlighted. Xing Chen and Tier both probably very happy. I mean, beads burners in themselves, but not a lot of capabilities, I should say, from Beltslap to get out of Fearless and or that Xing Chen ult, the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, without burning a beads. So if they don't have those available for some of the carries on Beltslap, that's going to be a big play set up there for Ra. But Kiki, the biggest question that's looming. Now you see both rosters, everything's locked in. It's game 4. Snakepit have one on their way. Can they win this one and beat Beltslap clean?
I want to say that Beltslap come back, but really I feel like the momentum is definitely going towards Snakepit's way. Bellslap is in their pit, and we're just going to have to see what happens.
Hey, like you said, momentum is on their side. One game away from being able to move forward. Snake Pit, the underdogs. Can they do it here in Game 4?
Gore, right now, I don't think I want to bet against them. Snake Pit have overcome the odds to find themselves up 2-1 to Bellslap. And if you're Bellslap, thank God you're in the upper bracket, right? Or it'd be 2-0 here at this point, man. I mean, I know that Bellslap have looked good. I mean, they've been ahead in both games, but how have they lost all of these?
We got to work on closing out these matches. We got to work on the decision-making around these objectives. I mean,
not stack it up.
How often? Yeah. The first one was a 3-man ult, and we said it was a 3-man ult again for the second ult that Angry had that match. We got to make a correction. That was 4 zeros. Actually beads out the 4th hit.
Yeah.
How often can you really expect Angry to go big that way? I mean, Bellslap being 12,000 gold up at that point, they had to have been feeling confident. All shreds of confidence now gone. I'm sure Bellslap's mentals are shattered.
Yeah, I hope that Bellslap are sturdy in terms of their mentals, right? Because they're going to need it. Zeros will be piloting the Chang'e this time. Maybe he can hit some of the highlights that Angry did last game. Julio takes the Hercules over to solo. I know Applejack backstage is telling us he wanted to see that in Trix Tank's hands, but Trix will be playing the Kumba again this time instead. As it looks like he's trying to strip away the buff from the Chaos side of the map, and now Arkle level 2 rolls in for some damage. Not enough for a kill, but clearly some pressure over here for the Bellslap duo.
Yeah, it seems like Bellslap's trying to send a message early on. This might be the most fighting in the early game we've seen all set. They're trying to make it happen a little bit more quickly, and I think it's kind of reflected in their draft a little bit. Julio on this Hercules should be looking for pressure. Kumbhakarna and Ram should be able to find pressure into this duo lane as well, and Chang'e is certainly a very fight-centric pick. The only thing that doesn't fit that identity is this Kali for Johnny, who should just be free farming like he did in game 1, or 2 rather.
Exactly, and we saw him looking really, really strong as a result. He was able to do quite a bit of damage for them and getting them really close to being able to close that game out with some great help from Zeros on that Giannis, but it wasn't enough to win it. So Johnny's get to do a little bit more that we saw from the last game. Once that we make it to that point, I mean, I assume we're making it to the 20-minute mark with no more than 3K gold separating them, so that's what they're going to need Johnny to really be hitting his stride, right, and being able to break that stalemate that's shown up in all the games so far.
Yeah, I think so. I would like to see Johnny try and get involved a little bit earlier on, though, because Worst Turtle did so much for his team in the last match to set them up for good fights around the Gold Fury or rotations through the jungle. Worst Turtle was doing so much proactively that they really were, Bellslap that is, feeling the absence of their jungler. I know that Kali is a late-game hyper carry and getting him farmed should be the priority, but that doesn't mean that you can completely ignore the aggressive facet of the game.
Exactly. We know that he's going to have to do that because of how well Worst Turtle has been playing on this Serket lately, right? He has looked lights out on this pick, has the boots finished already. Looks like he rushed those so he can get active as soon as possible. So now that Worst Turtle has the boots finished, finishing speed, if he elects to, he could have a great opportunity to look to try and start some fights here around this map. But he played great last game. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to do the same thing here this time.
Absolutely agree. And, you know, you brought up that you want to see more from Johnny. I think, if anything, if Zeros can also just, like, do his best Angry impression, I mean, just hit a couple of laps in a row on this Chang'e, it might just be enough for the rest of Bellslap to find this W. But the trade-off here in the P's and B's is that we saw Bellslap immediately put a lot more priority on this Chang'e in the picks, leaving up Angry to take what is one of the best mages in the game right now since the buffs. He's going to be slow immune inside of this Ra. The ultimate is one of the best confirmed for any objective on the map right now, and one of the longest range, so he's going to have nearly infinite steal potential as well. I think Snake Pit, although aren't playing the exact same comfort picks, they may have come away with a much better draft.
I think they've got a chance. If they can hold on to the same great early game they had last time and maybe not dip in that late game like they did against Bellslap, who started coming to light. And really, Snake Pit barely dipped. It was that one fight around the Fire Giant that hurt them, starting off with the first of Angry's excellent ults that game and them not being able to capitalize. They had the 5v4 and lost the fight because Johnny did so much damage when he got back. Now we are seeing Worst Turtle get aggressive. Does not get the kill. Whoa. Zeros does end up using the beads. It looks like Angry may be a little bit off there with the ult.
Yeah, you know, a little Hail Mary situation. I think even if Angry does connect the ult there wasn't enough dot damage from the Circuit ultimate to really result in a kill. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, with those beads being popped, it's still an absolutely good trade for Snake Pit. They can just rotate back through and try and shut down Zeros again.
Genetics getting aggressive, looking for Johnny, who does still have destruction, so not in danger of dying just yet. Not in danger of dying at all, as no one gets aggressive there, and he makes it out. Looks like the very slightest of leads. Basically nothing is there for Snake Pit, but they are a bit ahead, about 200 or 300 gold or so, and they've been doing a little bit better than Belt Slap so far throughout these finals here. And then that's the part that's getting away from me. You expected Belt Slap to give us our best smite yet, right? This is right on the precipice of getting to compete with the SPL teams, of having a chance to make it to Worlds. And yet they've struggled here in these games up against Snake Pit. I don't want to take anything away from Snake Pit. They've played great, but I don't know. I expect to see a different Belt Slap team here.
But we have to take into account every single win that Snake Pit has in this particular set has been at minimum 8,000 gold behind, right? Belt Slap has been priming themselves to find these wins. It's just one misplay in the late game, one misplay in a team fight, 3 deaths results in the end of your Titan every single time, it seems like. That's a huge threat as well, and it takes a lot of awareness from Snake Pit to realize that they have that opportunity to end the game. I mean, even in the last match, there was 8 seconds left-ish on the respawn for the enemy Hunter, and they still went in for the end. That takes a lot of bravery. Had Snake Pit not succeeded in ending the game, they would have just lost the minions.
They were on their Titan, weren't they? It was close, and Snake Pit recognized they had a chance, and there's some hunger from these guys. They feel as though they've been overlooked here in Europe all this time, and they have a chance to show exactly what they could do. And these guys aren't entirely unfamiliar, right? I mean, Spudio and Genetics are guys that have been playing at a high level for a long time, so they're kind of getting their chance here to show what they could do, even if it has to be through the SCC, getting back up there and competing with some of the guys that, especially the Genetics case, might have let them go.
Agreed. And just to put this all into perspective, this is match point to go to Worlds. If Snake Pit win here, they're playing as SPL teams, and it would be the second time throughout the entirety of this year that any team was able to take a complete set off of Belt Slap. The only other team, to my knowledge, was the Poppies about 8 months back, and since then, Belt Slap has been completely undefeated. Snake Pit might be making history here.
Whoa, Angry has to use the purification beads there from the pressure from Trickstank. That's something Trickstank has been consistently good at so far throughout this set. Has been putting pressure on these mages when they're alone and finding a chance to steal away those relics. And great job there by Trickstank to do it again. So Angry will be a good bit vulnerable. Ra relies on those relics and obviously his insane movement speed to make sure that he's able to stay safe. So that's going to have to be the call here for Angry for the next 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think playing passively is nothing that Angry isn't familiar with, or everyone else, all other 9 players in this lobby for that matter, so I'm sure he'll be absolutely comfortable winning another 2 minutes for those to come back up. And already, we're starting to see a slight XP disparity. Angry's about a half level up over the opposition inside of Zeros, who just ticked over to level 8 inside of that wave. Angry has been so for a little while now. Small grouping here, but Trickstank all alone.
Able to avoid getting grabbed there by Worst Turtle, but Worst Turtle was for sure looking for it. Wasn't there any chance to lock down Trix? He would have been happy to take there if that opportunity had presented itself. Trickstank considering going up towards red, but I'm glad he turned back around. I don't know if he had much chance there to try and slow him down. Thought maybe he was looking for a ward there, but I don't think that was the case either. Trickstank just perhaps considering an opportunity that didn't quite materialize, as now he could run into Worst Turtle here again as he manages to hide behind the geometry. Wants to try and interrupt him while he goes for these oracles, but there's backup on the way. Genetics is here, so the root has landed, but not really looking to try and look for a fight there. Even with Belt Slap's backup, Snake Pit are able to make it out.
I'm already feeling a distinct shift in how Trickstank is approaching this match. Can you feel it? He's playing a lot more aggressively. He's positioning a lot further up. He's looking for these solo agent plays, which could win them the match if he finds a fantastic uppercut on someone caught unaware or something along those lines. But it's also a risky knife's edge, especially considering 8 minutes in, we haven't had the first blood yet. If Trickstank keeps isolating himself like that, it might cost his team. I'd like to see him play, and it's crazy that I'm saying this, a little bit safer.
Yeah, maybe so, right? I mean, I like that he's looking for these opportunities, but you're so right. The opportunity to get punished in return is absolutely there. Take a look at the way Worst Turtle's moving through this build crisply, as is Johnny. Has the full Warrior Tabi and the Sledge completed. Meanwhile, Johnny has Ninja Tabi into Kin size. Honestly, even without Hazen Katana, Johnny's a problem with the kin size finished already. He'll have Hazen right behind this, but I wouldn't sleep on his output in the fight already.
His damage output is good, but he's going to have such a hard time sticking to anyone, especially considering his priority target is likely going to be Angry on this Ra, who not only is slow immune, but also slows anyone who approaches him once he decides to pop the Divine Light, meaning that Johnny likely isn't going to be looking to get involved in the 3v3 until he gets that next item slotted. But if he is able to find anyone isolated, Terrorim, for example, or Spudio or something along those lines, he should be a huge threat in these fights.
Oh, look at Terram doing his best Julio impression. I thought we weren't seeing this tier build all that much anymore, but these EU SCC players are committed to it. It is the Talaria into the Relic Dagger. Again, almost certainly going to be the Wing Blade right after that, and we will have this speedy tier moving around who can respond well to the slows that are coming out on the other side here for Belt Slap, and they certainly have some here from Arkle. I mean, he's going to be able to get away from some of these problems with this build.
He will, or not get away, even just close the gap and see if he can make a little bit of a menace inside of the back line. Arkle has the slow Trix tank as well. I think that it's going to be a huge disruption factor, but this build is going to be slightly countered out by what Johnny's going for. Kali with the kin size is going to shred HP, and Terram is completely forgoing defense in exchange, making his build tanky through HP, only is going to empower Johnny.
Oh, Trixtank's been isolated, Myth. This was what your fear was. He gets hit by the last breath, but the Waxing Moon from Zeros is absolutely perfect. That puts Belt Slap right back into the fight. Now, they can't capitalize on it to look for any more kills, but that certainly would have been Trixtank, maybe more, if Zeros doesn't hit that ult like that.
Man, that's what we're concerned about, right? Trixtank is acting as this solo agent lower down inside the enemy jungle while the rest of his team is grouped up around their own tower. It just feels like he's opening himself up to a lot of damage. Luckily, he makes it out there, but sub 20, 30 health? That's so dangerous.
And I really thought we'd see some more kills there, one way or the other, but in the end, no harm, no foul. Sprint was expended by Genetics on the right side. All the relics still intact for Belt Slap, though a couple ultimates were used. Zeros and Trixtanks the same as Worst Turtles and Angries on the other side. And Worst Turtle, a little bit worse for the Wear back there in the jungle, is just farming it up though, so he should be safe. No one in range to try and hurt him here at this point, but it's just as you were saying, Trixtanks made himself a bit more vulnerable. And now, a little bit of extra comfort, I think, if you're a Belt Slap fan, because clearly Zeros is feeling good on the Chang'an.
He is, but he has fallen behind again. Look, level 12 or level 11 to Angry's level 12, second relic available to the Ra, whereas Zeros is going to be a little bit more susceptible to damage around these fights. This is an opportunity for Snake Pit to use the slight gold lead, and I say slight loosely. That's 1,300 established just off of map pressure. They could use this time, while Zeros is still level 11, to try and work their way in towards the Gold Fury, or even the Pyromancer, or even just look to gank him in mid. This is such a huge power spike that Snake Pit have.
They have access to that secondary relic that's not there for Belt Slap on that other side. Snake Pit has been willing to go for some of these objectives in the early game, but on the whole, this has been a relatively slow-paced set, so if they do want to go over, might be a bit of a change what we've seen from them up until now. But take a look, Terram, almost called him Julio. Terram is on the hunt here in the jungle. Unfortunately, that is the hunt concluded. He comes right back to the lane and just starts farming, as is everyone else here this time. But Snake Pit are going to be bringing 3 into the mid as our Belt Slap. So seeing those even numbers, both teams stay relatively chill and hang back. But we're seeing exactly what we expected from Terram over there, into the Wing Blade right after the Relic Dagger. I think we saw Julio go Genji's in the next slot, but that was against a Cthulhu. So likely we'll see some more physical procs from Terram here.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same path, and I'm really liking how Terram is deciding to play this. Julio, when he went for the movement speed build, was largely isolating himself to his lane, whereas Terram has continuously been rotating to these right side mid camps every single time they spawn to see if they can start up a fight. It almost resulted in a kill last time on a Trix tank, and I think that it's great that he hasn't been disheartened. He's continually looking to find these rotations, and he's out-rotating, obviously, just because he's got infinitely more movement speed than Julio. I want to see Snake Pit, if they're going to fight anywhere, likely I want to see him fight around their soul lane.
Terram's been putting himself in all the right positions, and Belt Slap just need an opportunity. Rather, Snake Pit need an opportunity to capitalize on what he's done. Ultimate coming out there from Julio, not a big deal. Using it to try and clear the wave and likely take an opportunity to back. Looks like he is, Julio, I mean, grabbing some more magical procs here in this slot. He already had that Emerald Talisman. He's going to follow that up with the Talisman of Energy. Okay. Not an item we see picked up a whole lot, not even particularly on solo laners, but That's the route Julio's taking. As Snake Pit have a grouping over here near the Fury, this would not be a bad time to look to try and start up a fight for them. Genetics finds nothing. Instead, just comes back and grabs the Oracles.
We might see Julio elect to pick up a Shield of Regrowth next. The Talisman Energy passive matched with Shield of Regrowth might be able to make him match up with this movement speed Terrarem a little bit better. That might be one reason he's decided to go along this path, so he's not getting out-rotated to every single engagement. It's made it that much more dangerous for Belt Slap to look for those camps on the right-hand side. Maybe Julio just wants to get a little bit of value going his way in that regard. But we are approaching the 15-minute mark, and both teams all have their second relic slotted, which is traditionally around the time we start to see these dances around the Gold Fury begin. I would be surprised to see Belt Slap be the aggressors on it, considering the lead that Snake Pit has already established for themselves, and the fact that Angry has the best confirm on the map. I think Belt Slap are going to have to play very aware. At any given opportunity, Snake Pit can sneak away with the Gold Fury.
I'm sure these junglers are ready to rumble as well, Miff. They both have their third item finished. Johnny got there a little bit sooner. Hasten Katana finished. Meanwhile, Worst Turtle has the Void Shield you allotted last game as part of the build he's been going on this Sircat basically all weekend. And I think now they're both hitting those great power spikes, some prots, and some health there for Worst Turtle, and obviously the passive there to deny the basic attack penalty for Johnny is going to be huge for him, and the kin size to bring in some damage. Both of them are in a position where they could look to take some fights.
I agree completely. I think, if anything, Kali's probably got the slightly stronger power spike at this point. I consider Kali completely aligned here. Sure, you can get some more damage, you get the Stone Cutting Sword, something along those lines, but as far as shred potential, this might be one of the better times for Johnny to look to get involved. But I think this even slower pace, I mean, 15 minutes in, no kills, is a byproduct of the pressure that Belt Slap is feeling here. They are on elimination point. If they lose here, they go home, and Snake Pit go on to Worlds. Both teams are likely feeling the pressure, which is being reflected in the pace of this match.
It is, man. A lot of strong teams fell along the way for these two to make it here. And Snake Pit, bearing that burden, start up the Gold Fury. They already have it down below 5,000 health. And nearby is Trixtank, who blinks in looking for a mess. The Fury is dropped, and now they're just taking the fight. Last Breath committed onto the tank from Belt Slap, but he evacuates to the right-hand side. Now, Snake Pit are left with no Fury and no tank to try and kill. And it looks like Trixtank did his job and more. They gave up on it, but now Snake Pit are right back in. They don't have Last Breath this time, but they can still look to try and burn the Fury. It's down to half already, but Snake Pit drop it again. They're playing this fight patiently and trying to bait in Belt Slap as the Fury gets even lower. Now Julio is here to try and play some defense. Johnny coming in the backside, but Terrarem finds the two-man pull, and Trixtank has the passive proc. Spudio gets the kill. Meanwhile, there's the leap in from Worst Turtle looking to win the duel, but Worst Turtle forgot about destruction. You're not going to win this if the ultimate's still available, bud, and he falls to Julio.
I cannot believe the decision-making from Worst Turtle there to jump in. I thought maybe he had his ultimate available, so he was going to trade his own life and make sure that Johnny falls down as well, but that was down. Johnny gets to pick up a free one, but fortunately for Snake Pit, First Blood goes their way, Gold Fury goes their way as well, so they've done a good job. They come away like bandits in the night, despite falling a little bit sillily, I'd say, on the side of Worst Turtle. Either way, clean win, and now we're starting to see the gold start to differentiate itself. Nearly 2,000 in favor of Snake Pit. XP starting to lean their way as well. But I think with Terrarem doing such a good job of burning away Arkel's beads before the fight even starts, I think Belt Slap do a very good job defending. They had no right looking that good in an engagement.
I agree. They made that one much, much closer than it was meant to be. To be honest, though, should have been a 1-for-0, as you already covered. Worst Turtle getting a little bit lost in the sauce, but still it comes out favoring the Snake Pit, right? They are able to find the Gold Fury. They've extended their lead just a bit, about 1,500 out in front they are now. But I think that might take a little bit of the confidence away for Snake Pit. It's not as if you're winning fights cleanly, necessarily. It's still coming down close, but they obviously are winning them, so they've got to be a little bit more careful in this next engagement if they take one.
And Worst Turtle, he could just nod that one off. Hit it with the old FGC nod and say, all right, I messed up on this one. It's not going to happen again. Because, if anything, they should be feeling comfortable. Sure, there's the pressure of we need to make it 2 Worlds, but they at least have this 1-game buffer between them and Belt Slap, as well as they've still got the lead. So I think that they shouldn't be letting that affect them too much. If anything, I would love to see them continue this pressure. They forced the fight on the Gold Fury. Why not do the exact same around the Pyro?
Well, look at this engagement coming out from Johnny and Julio. I don't have time for the corny joke I was building up to there as Terrarem is able to evade capture. Now Belt Slap after pushing Snake Pit out. Exactly can start up this Pyromancer. They'll deward first, deny the vision over to the Chaos side squad, and force them to push in with their faces. Old face check, as we say. And that is enough to deter Belt Slap. They drop the Primal Mancer.
They do. Now a 5-man grouping forces ADCs from both teams to rotate in here, but Belt Slap are maintaining the defensive position. It's a threat of, we can do this, you have to fight us here, and it's going to be Julio a little bit too far forward.
As my good buddy says, the threat of activation has them worried. As Snake Pit are just on the outside. They're going to be careful here. If this ends up being a full 5-on-5 and one team wins it handily, they could take the bigger prize, but Genetics will be able to survive the pressure. He was pulled in, goes back for the raw healing. It seems to be A-okay, though Julio wants to keep up the pressure even more. But take a look at where Spudio is. My man just went back to lane. He's like, all right, I'm farming it up. I'm an ADC. I suppose with that rapid reincarnation and get back quicker, but hey, it looks like he had the right idea. The fight has entirely dissipated.
It has, which is interesting. Belt Slap just got vision on him on the opposite side of the map, and Spudio is already backing, so he can rotate back over. Maybe it's a deep fake. Rom, Oracle, has rotated back to duo lane. If he flies over to Pyro, it could be free.
It certainly could be, and that appears to be the call. They've baited Oracle in to defend a tier 1.
Wow.
Whereas the real prize was the Pyromancer. Not bad here from Snake Pit. But it only ends up working if they're able to get the objective, and Belt Slap are still nearby. Julio could steal with a boulder, Trick Tank, and Zeros could take it away with their damage as well, but the Pyromancer is low, secured by the Raw Snipe, easy as you like. But now how can Julio capitalize off the big stun? Spudio stuck in the middle, but Jingwei can airstrike away. It's just too easy for him. Meanwhile, Trick Tank gets the epic uppercut. Worst Turtle's in a bad spot, but I think Snake Pit are going to make it out easy peasy.
Fitch, I am grinning ear to ear. I love seeing micro plays like that. That pump fake, so impressive to confirm themselves the neutral objective as Genetics finds Trick Tank under the tower.
Gets him with that Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Now there's 2 members underneath the tower. Trick Tank is low. He gets the passive thrust, and that should be a clean kill. But can Arkle take one back with the snipes? He already missed the scope, misaligned. As Spudio gets away with murder. Snake Pit take the Pyromancer. They do lose the tier 1 tower in mid, but they claim Trick Tank's life and extend the lead again. They're up now 3K.
Bro, this is exactly what I was worried about for Belt Slap. They're playing so aggressive and almost for no reason. The Pyromancer has already fallen. Why are you chasing Snake Pit to their tier 2 mid tower? You immediately get punished for it. Trix Tank steps too far forward, baits his team into a bad position. Fortunately, his respawn timer is short, so he's already going to be back and ready to defend if the Fire Giant does get contested here by the Snake Pit. But Genetics now has a 2-level lead over Trix. He's going to be so much tankier in the front line that it's almost going to be mitigatable whether or not Trix Tank is able to get into the enemy back line. He's going to get shredded by Spudio. He can get displaced by Terrorem. The damage output is starting to become a little bit too much.
Here's the thing. Worst Turtles played well this game, but I'd be alright if he decided to farm for a little bit. He's level 17, and they're up by 3K. How's this happening, my man? Get out there and get yours maybe a little bit, as he's worrying a little too much about making sure the team is okay. But now they got to be careful. They've sent Spudio and Worst Turtle to the right side of the map when all of Belt Slap are grouping up for Primal.
Yeah, no way the pump fake works twice, right? The Belt Slap's privy to this technique, and they're going to keep their positioning up around the Gold Free. Arkle can't get baited into rotating into solo, because Gold's on the duo side of the map. Instead, though, it seems like Snake Pit are starting to work their way slowly over towards the Gold Free. I imagine this is where the fight should erupt, but it's not a fight that is as easily won as we might think through to the course of this match. It's only 3,000 gold separating these two teams, but Belt Slap give up the defensive positioning for free.
Yeah, now they're starting to whittle down the Fury, and they still have Raw Snipe to confirm, but Snake Pit drop it. No 50-50s here. Maybe more like 60-40s with the Snipe on Snake Pit's side. Julio unable to find the pull, so Belt Slap fall back to the defensive position, but Snake Pit say, hey, we'll start the objective right back up. Put Spudio on and put out some damage. Julio takes some damage on the way in. Objective gets dropped. And now Terrorem and Genetics are pushed in onto the other side of the map. They managed to push out Johnny, but Terrorem's got to be careful. He doesn't win this 1v1 with this health-based build. Johnny swings at this point in the game, but Terrorem gets out of there, gets back to the raw heals, and will sustain. But that's good damage all the same. Trick Tank has knocked up Spudio, and Spudio takes a ton of damage. Arkle able to claim the life, and Belt Slap now right back in it.
And they're surging forward, but they think better of it, fall back to the Primal Fury, see if they can strip away this neutral objective. Snake Pit have created themselves a small buffer, so this isn't going to be the biggest deal. It should only about bring the game to parity, but they have to be careful. Hovering this far into the jungle Julio might be able to displace someone, but no. Snake Pit make it out of there alive, or those who are still alive, as Spudio has got 30 seconds left on the respawn. Belt Slap rather, might have an opportunity here to work their way in towards the Fire Giant, force Snake Pit to respond while they've only got 4 members.
But Myth, what went so wrong in that Gold Fury fight as Genetics takes some poking in mid? I think that is the difference in value from the jungles here at this point. Worst Turtle's not matching what Johnny's doing.
He isn't, but Worst Turtle was forced to rotate to match Johnny there because Tarum takes a bad fight. He rotates in to peel off. If Worst Turtle isn't there, Johnny picks up the kill for free. And since he wasn't in the rest of his team area, it results in Spudio dying.
Exactly. Johnny demands 2 people's attention, whereas the rest of his team gets a 4v3. Now Belt Slap started up the fire. They ended up dropping it. They still have some sustain of their own to match what Raw can do on the back of Zeros. To check the relic roundup, there is no Aegis for Spudio and no relics at all for Genetics. Meanwhile, Beads down for Johnny, Blink down for Trickstank. So a slight advantage to Belt Slap with their carries having all the defensive relics. But Zeros doesn't have the Aegis. He has Blink on Chang'e instead for looking for a big waxing moon.
Yeah, taking one out of Angry's book from last game. I like this. It's much better. It's so hard to line up those waxing moons that Blink really is almost core on Chang'e, I'd say. You want to be able to reposition, and you don't necessarily need the Aegis when you've already got one built into your kit. So I think he makes the right decision this time around. Both teams completely even and posturing around the Fire Giant. I think Pyromancer is much more likely to go down first, and it seems like Belt Slap have a lot of confidence. They're just going to start it up.
Well, perhaps they've recognized that Snake Pit are not in position to defend this one. This objective is free for the Belt Slap boys. Wouldn't want to call them the BS boys, right? They're Belt Slap. I'll stick with the full name for them here this time, as Snake Pit are managing to move back in, at least in time to defend this Tier 1 over in right. That's 2 backs that are coming through here for Belt Slap. They push Arco back to base as well as Johnny. But I don't think Snake Pit have that information. They can't move up and take any ground. And that's 3 sentries down for Belt Slap. 1 on the FG proper, 1 behind, and 1 up. They've got great information with that warding.
And not only do they have the information on the map, but look at their inventories. Only 2 sentries for Snake Pit, whereas Belt Slap have 3. So no matter what, if Snake Pit move up to D-Ward, Belt Slap should come out ahead every single time on the vision. That's so good for them. I think the strategy here is Snake Pit just have to look for a pick, but Julio, a little bit too quick.
And then he goes back in for the pull push onto 2, forces the ultimate out from Spudio. Wow, Julio just did a ton of work for Belt Slap now. The rest of the team has got to capitalize. They've got Angry incredibly low on this Raw. He's been controlled by Julio. Goes for the snipe to at least get his damage up, but Zeros gets the kill. Worst till against Johnny, but that is 2 on the side of Belt Slap, and Julio doing it all on his own setup for every bit of what Belt Slap we're getting right now. Genetics will be the next one to the slaughter. It's a double for Arkle, and Belt Slap better thank their solo laner.
Yeah, they really do. They owe him every single bit there. He burns out the confirm from Snake Pit. He's able to confirm a double pull for his team, displaces the entirety. Snake Pit forced to surge forward to peel out for their team. And now 3 members dead. Fire Giant should fall freely. Terrorem is going to have to put on a hero's cape.
He's got a little bit of help here from Worst Turtle, but is that going to be enough to disrupt? Trickstank looks for the disruption there with the Mez, but I think Snake Pit are buying their time. The Fire Giant's down to about 1,200 HP, so in comes Snake Pit, but Belt Slap confirmed the objective. So now they can just take the fight on the backside. Tarum gets melted. Trickstank is able to lock down Worst Turtle for another free kill. Belt Slap get the D aside, and Snake Pit starting to crumble here in the late game.
They are, but this is no strange position for Snake Pit. They won every single match this set from behind, and there's still a lot of towers for Belt Slap to work through. Belt Slap, this is the first time we've seen them in this position. If anything, 6,000 Golden Fire Giant isn't the absolute best, but this is new. Normally, they'd go for the towers.
Instead, they're going to make a hard push for the right side Phoenix. They do not want to end up squandering an opportunity again. With only 3 alive on Snake Pit, they cannot step forward to contest 4 members with Fire Giant. They give up on the right side Phoenix, and Belt Slap are looking clinical now that they've gotten the lead. Johnny burns down the mid tier 2, and Belt Slap will not relent. They will not let up. They are looking to crush Snake Pit right here and now. The mid Phoenix is starting to crumble a little bit, but Genetics moves in, snipers off the mark from Angry. That finds next to nothing. The mid Phoenix falls. At Belt Slap, we're doing everything correct, and they're not done yet. They're going to move forward and claim the life of Genetics. They are unyielding as they take everything away from Snake Pit.
The grace has fallen away from Belt Slap's playstyle. No longer are we pushing down every single tower, crossing our T's and dotting our I's before we try and break the base. Maybe Snake Pit's most dire mistake was going up in the set. Belt Slap looks angry. They're looking much more decisive. Now they're burning away through 2 Phoenixes, falling back to the easier objectives. This is a much more aggressive style than I'm used to seeing from these guys, and it's working so well.
Yeah, Belt Slap are all business now in the late game, aren't they? Clinically taking towers and structures and objectives and expanding the lead up to 10,000. That is difficult to deal with at the best of times, but now here at this point when it feels like Worst Turtle struggling to find late game value and Terrum's getting his ankles broke by Julio, I mean, I don't know, man. They're going to have a tough time keeping up here with them here at this point. There's more gold to collect. They're going to get those towers in left too.
They are, but look, Finch, I've seen it twice now. I'm not counting Snake Pit out. All they need is 2 picks, maybe 3, and they're just going to straight up win the game. Doesn't matter how many towers are left. Doesn't matter how many Phoenixes you have, how many Fire Giants are on your belt. That's the tenacity the Snake Pit roster is able to bring, but it seems like they're going to be looking for a grouping. They're not grouped up on side of the tower. They're not inside their Phoenixes. Instead, they're trying to find someone isolated. This time, they find Trix Tank, not exactly the easiest target. He's going to walk out of that one for free, having stolen away a blink.
Another advantage going to Belt Slap. So Terrum, without his ability to engage, and Belt Slap are done with the formalities and the niceties. They grab Genetics easily, and the damage is there, but in comes Terrum to deny the chase. So that's now the ultimate and the blink down from Terrum. He's next to a non-factor as Johnny pushes up 2 minutes. Spuddio gets caught. What happened, my man? He's dead before he gets a chance to do anything. Now the snipes are coming through from Artful. They don't provide much value, but it's also not needed. They get the left side Phoenix. The base is entirely exposed.
Winions in, member dead for 50. Now's the time. Belt Slap have to search forward, but a huge ult!
Yeah, the snipe from Angry hits just about everyone, but can they capitalize in this moment? Johnny still has his ultimate, so he's not the best target as Worst Turtle gets pinned up against the wall. He cannot survive, and Johnny gets the kill. 5 against 3, Fire Giant around their waist. I think Belt Slap won their first actual win of these Europe finals here in the SWC. They move on to the Titan and dares Snake Pit to come up with an answer. Destruction coming out from Johnny. The Titan can't stand it, and Belt Slap tie the setup.
World's on the line, don't want to fumble. You put Julio on Hercules in solo. I don't care about the rhyme because it's just the truth. This man single-handedly won his team the game there, and he's looking so good for it. Belt Slap, we were worried about your mentals. Way to stick in there, and now we're going to game 5.
Things look scary there for a minute, but as you said, Julio just delivers. That sets up the whole chain of events for Belt Slap to find this dub. Now, we're getting exactly what we want. Game 5 in the finals to go to World. It's just that easy. One more game right after the break.
All come down to this. We couldn't ask for more. A 5-game set all the way to the end here for the finals. Belt Slap managed to reel that one back in their favor, but can they do it twice? It's the question we've kind of been asking since the beginning of the set. Snake Pit have been on a tear, but that one got away from them. Kiki, I mean, looking at it, there's a lot of good moments for them, maybe a couple of bad moments for them. Where do things really start to go wrong for Snake Pit in that last game?
You know, it's really hard to keep track because it's just a really long, drawn-out game. I feel like the tier for me really wasn't what they needed for their comp. They had some good setup for the Raw, but the tier, he is all about dispositioning players, and that really makes it hard for Raw. Raw wants people to be running in a straight line, and I'm not sure if they were taking away the tier because they did take away the Changa the last game and it worked out. But at this point, everything's on the line. You want to play what you're best at, not what the enemy is good at.
Yeah, you have to figure out where you want to correct this. A lot of good moments towards the very end. Another low-kill game. It really was that one play. I mean, Julio comes through, Terrorum gets the beads, even though he doesn't hit the Fearless, and then Julio decides, you know what? I'm not going to let that stand. Turns around and sets them all up. It's all, in my eyes, under that tier 2 or tier 1 tower, even on right, where things get shifted. And I'd even said this while we were watching it. I was like, look, I don't know. You lose that fight if you're Snake Pit, but now technically you're down 10k and you've lost to Phoenix. This is how they've won every other game, so theoretically you're in the position to win. Unfortunately for them, things just didn't click. Maybe too tanky, not enough damage. One of the options that could come through for them. Because on the other side, I mean, Arkle was free casting from the background. Zeros just seemed to have a pretty solid grip on this. Belt Slap, once they got their hands on the wheel, really controlled the game.
And they definitely have fire in their eyes. They are not going to go down easily. They haven't lost a set, right? So everything is down to the wire, and they know that it's time for them to really just put in the work. This Dejani Kali, definitely worth a ban. If you're going to get to late game and she's full attack speed, then you better have some sort of hard TC.
Well, can you ban that, or do you have to keep banning Trix Tank Sobek? I guess we're going to find that out right now as we go into Picks and Bans, game number 5. This is winner take all territory. Snake Pit are going to be your first pick overall. What bans we've seen? Hell, Apollo, Sobek, Persephone, Yamoja. I'm missing one, but that's absolutely okay because it'll come to me in a little bit. Either way, it's been a lot of focus on some of the healers, a little bit of the supports, mainly shots at Trix Tank coming down from Snake Pit. And I want to know, do you sacrifice it? I mean, you've been kind of questioning the Sobek this entire time. Do you just drop that for the Kali here and now?
Well, it looks like they're going to do the second Kali there. They are maybe expecting a Khepri. So I feel like Snake Pit is looking for a first pick, either Khepri or a Changa possibly. That seems to what's worked best for them. Belt is going to ban the Khepri, keeping it. It's been working out for them. And I think they're going to stick to the Sobek because you've done it the whole day today. Whoa! No Sobek! Uh-oh! But the Herc did do really good, so it's worthy of a ban.
They just come in, sprinkle a little spice for us here in game number 5. Changa as well, banned out by Belt Slap. I thought that was going to be a first pick here. I was ready to call it one more time, but no, I like the adjustments. But look what's on the table. I mean, Sobek available for the first time, Hell available, Persephone available. I mean, all of these power picks. Is Hell, of all of those, the one that you would go for first? Like, where's your preference in those top 2 mids?
Well, Hell has been getting banned often, and she does have the movement speed, which I feel like that's kind of crucial right now. They did end up nerfing a lot of the movement speed items, so a lot of movement speed characters. Afro has some of that too. I personally like to level the 1 over the 2 sometimes because that gives you extra movement speed, and it even lowers the cooldown. So Hell can be good. It can cleanse the Persephone ult if they decide to pick it. It can cleanse the Sobek pluck, which was getting banned every game, so it must be terrifying.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, if Trixting comes into this and just feeds his brains out, then we're scratching our heads even harder as to why was this getting banned the whole time. But it has been Deadly Sobek, known for his control over there in the duo lane as it comes through. Nemesis locked in here for Snake Pit. Again, something that, at least so far today, on their end, has indicated that maybe they're going to go for a Cthulhu later. But also might just be a good pick to deal with an Aphrodite and a Sobek, 2 targets that are usually difficult to burn down. Nemesis typically helps in that.
Jingwei, a great pick here into the Sobek. You get plucked, but you're going to be able to easily dash out of that. Going to make her a really hard target. The only thing I don't like about Jingwei is she's not quite the hyper carry. She does get the crit chance on her too, but I much prefer my carry to have attack speed like Rama, because once you get to late game and your autos are critting for 700, multiple fired shots is just too much to deal with.
Well, depending on where this Aphrodite goes, actually, it could be mid. Last time it was support, and so that's what kind of threw us for a loop. I was wondering if whether or not they were going to send it over there, but maybe just a mid Aphrodite, kind of standard and true to go up against that hell. I'd mentioned the Cthulhu a little bit ago. It seems like Belt Slap were on the same page I was, because they go ahead and ban that away from Snake Pit, limiting things down. I mean, we've seen Julio, Terram both run the tier. We've seen Julio running this Hercules a lot of the time. I think we've seen Terram run on the other side this Cthulhu, and now with all of those gone, they're gonna have to start playing something else. I'm excited to see what the Warriors are, especially now that Wukong's out of the equation too. I mean, there's so many options over there, but where do you go in solo lane now? What are you trying to lock in?
Well, it depends. Are they going to ban the Guan Yu? We have been seeing a lot of Guan bans, and it's gotten through so far, right? Everyone's getting, oh, I got my Sobek. Who needs Guan? But we'll see. I think that we're definitely going to see a Guan pickup, but that's going to leave another solo lane matchup to have to counter that. One that we haven't seen, maybe. I'm expecting a spicy pick to come out of Snake Pits.
Could be something like Arthur. I mean, somebody that, at least in North America, has been big. In the Pro League, he's been picked up recently. Not a lot of people are pulling him through, and I think there might be some matchup issues maybe against that Guan Yu, but we'll have to see. Nike, since it's alongside that Nemesis, you kind of assume it's going over there to the solo lane. With the Bakasura bans, the last thing on my mind, and I think on everybody's mind, should be what is Johnny going to be playing here for Belt Slap as they look to lock in their support for the last thing here on Snake Pit. Not a lot of options left for really anybody except for the Assassin. I mean, Jungler's pick, Kali taken away, Bakasura taken away. Where do you go?
Right now they have the ability to pick it all. With the Terra there, they have a bunch of healing, a lot of burst. So you definitely need a hyper carry. You're going to have an Afro linked to you, so you'll feel safe. They are definitely able to pick anything they want. And I'm so surprised to see Set got through this whole time. I'm happy if they pick that. That's definitely going to be very good for them. That's going to give them pressure and any sort of carry potential that they need. Wow.
I remember, prep for this weekend, we're talking about how Set is something that's been very important. A lot of these picks, and then we start seeing things like Apollo Jungle to the point where I forgot that Set existed because things have been so weird. He hasn't been picked, he hasn't been banned, no one's been looking at him, and he finally comes through in the last game. Looking at these drafts, Kiki, real quick, who do you think has the capabilities to take it?
I'm going to go with Belt Slap just because they have Set, Afro. I love those characters. But much more team play, I feel like, can go over on Snake Pit's side.
Oh, it's a toss-up. I mean, you come to the team play, that's what's been winning them at least the 2 games they were able to pick up. Belt Slap, though, a signature Sobek, signature Rom, a signature Guan Yu, I guess, in this case. The Set coming through as well. It seems like a lot of power picks on their side. It's one more game. Winner gets to go to those Worlds qualifiers. Let's go down to the casters for one last time.
Exactly right, Gore. Someone's Titan will fall, and they will be going home. The one that's standing will be moving on to Worlds. What a battle this has been between Belt Slap and Snake Pit so far here, Mifflin. And now, I'm starting to think that you got to kind of move over to Belt Slap's side. For some reason, I feel like Game 4 needed to be it for Snake Pit. Now, they've given Belt Slap life.
Yeah, the momentum's back in Belt Slap's court, but the momentum was in Belt Slap's court almost the entirety of the set, right? Snake Pit was always going to be the dark horse coming into this, and I think they've shown the tenacity, the ability to win from behind. They've got every single bit of it. So you know what, Finch? I'm gonna put my hat in Snake Pit's ring here. I think that they might be able to sneak away with it, especially considering the draft that they have. Nemesis and Hell and this Terra as well are gonna be so hard to deal with come late game. Terra Rim is gonna be a menace on this Nike and should at least force a Sunder pickup from Belt Slap, which is gonna be one less defensive relic that they have to work through, making it that much easier for Worst Turtle to find a pick.
And we've already seen that Hell has more pressure early, right? I mean, Angry could certainly have a chance to cause some problems for Belt Slap on this pick, whereas Zeros might not, depending on how it goes, be able to match it. So this will be an interesting one. There's all these kind of ebbs and flows determining how the match is going to go, but eventually Myth, Belt Slap are going to have a full build Aphrodite, a full build Set, and a full build Rom, set up forward by a Sobek on a Guan. And I just got to think that most times that's going to work for them as Snake Pit has Spudio plucked right back into danger. First Blood looming here for Belt Slap. If they can find the last bit of damage necessary to kill Spudio here as Arkle gets low too. But that will not matter in the end. First Blood goes over to Belt Slap, and unfortunately Genetics can't get the job done.
What a good pluck from Trix at the end there to make sure their Arkle makes it out of there alive. Finally, Belt Slap's early aggression in the duo lane results in a little bit of a win for them. First Blood goes their way. Pressure is going to go their way. Spudio is going to have a steep hill to climb back up. Fantastic early aggression from Belt Slap. I mean, I think we might have been right. I think they want this over. This is a mask-off situation. They're playing aggressive.
Yeah, it really felt like towards the end of Game 4, Belt Slap were done, you know, kind of playing around a little bit. Not playing around, but, you know, being a little overly cautious at times. Maybe not playing true to themselves. Need has forced Belt Slap to return to what has worked for them. And they're playing like the tricks I remember from SPL, the zeros I remember from all those times he was causing problems for other teams in the European SPL and even when things got international, and now Spudio in trouble again. I thought Jingwei was free into Sobek Myth because of the knockups, but it has not been the case.
It feels like Trix flipped a switch or something. Like in his mind, it's just like, wait, hold on, I'm better, right? Like I'm just better. I'm gonna play aggressive, and it's absolutely working for him. We saw a taste of it in that Kumakarna game with the aggressive positioning, acting as a solo agent. But now it's a distinct lack of respect in this duo lane that it's been developed from Trix, just continually finding these flux. Jingwei was supposed to look free, but it doesn't feel like it, huh?
No, and this is Trix's purple buff. I'm taking it. And he says he moves into the purple. Let's see if Genetics can deny. It looks like he does just barely protect the purple buff here. So good work from Genetics to preserve their farm there and not let Belt Slap strip this away. But we are starting to see the way Belt Slap, at the very least Trix, is planning on approaching this game with pressure. And Sobek is so good at that. When he's ahead, when he can safely look for plucks, at times he can feel like you can't stop him.
I agree, and Trix is not the only source of pressure for this team. Johnny picks up the Set out of jungle. I think that's a first for the weekend from European Smite, seeing Set get locked in. You want to talk about early kill potential. The second this guy has his boots online, I expect him to just run it down, and he's got a pocket Aphrodite with him as well. Back off additional burst, the healing, the Undying Love to make sure he gets out of these sticky situations is going to be very hard to deal with if he decides to play aggressively.
Man, seeing that Aphrodite hook to Set made me nauseous, man. That's gross, man. And what are you going to do about that in the late game, right? Listen, you can buy Divine, Ruin, and Brawlers if you want to, but that's a lot of healing to try and get your way through it. Plus the Undying Love and the back-off damage when he blinks onto you and skewers you for 80%. The back-off is the remaining 20. And now he's making his way over to Duo, perhaps looking for a gank. Johnny is set up right outside the lane, and Spudio and Genetics don't seem any the wiser, at least for now, but how can they push up when there's no pressure? There's the pull onto Spudio, but I don't think there's going to be a way in here for Johnny. Sometimes when your lane has this much pressure, it's actually harder to gank.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised that Johnny decided to go over there instead of maybe towards mid to try and bully out this Hell, who should be pretty easy to pick up at this point of the game. Back off when attached to an ally is going to apply a slow to whoever it is. If Johnny TPs in with the help of Aphrodite, it should be relatively easy to lock down Angry. You don't want to allow this Hell to free farm, and already she's got a 1-level lead over the opposition. This Hell should be priority number 1 for Johnny.
I think it's so too. Slow Angry down. This guy was the hero of Game 3, I believe, right? When Snake Pit took that to a lead, and now Johnny is indeed getting aggressive. The ultimate comes out from Worst Turtle to try and slow him down, but look at the damage onto Angry, and Johnny looks uninjured. My goodness, this is going to be a tough one for him. They got to figure out a way to wrangle Johnny quick.
And that was Johnny without the assistance of Zeros. My man was not connected to the Aphrodite. That was just Johnny, and it took the full effort of Worst Turtle with a body block to make sure that Angry makes it out of that situation alive. It looks like Angry's going to be slotting a Do More very early on in the build. The additional movement speed would be helpful, but normally up against a set jungle, you'd think Breastplate of Valor would be priority number 1.
Exactly, you want that additional help, and it feels good on really Angry, on Hell, and Aphrodite on the other side. Sometimes we see these mages slot into it for all that CDR and mana, giving them all that access to spam abilities if they need. So we might end up seeing it as Trixtank and Genetics do a little bit of battle in the jungle. That won't matter much, but Myth, I think we have to appreciate the faster pace here from Beltslap all around, with Johnny on the set and with Trixtank pushing the issue on Sobek. It kind of feels like they want to look for fights right away.
They do. I think they realize that they might be worried about how well Hell comes into the late game, but I might have to hold that thought. Trixtank finds a pluck on a Spudio, and Genetics engages himself.
Yeah, but what Spudio did there is what I thought would be happening all lane. How did they get the pressure earlier for that kill off of a pluck? Maybe they got it some other way, and that's how they found that first blood, but Beltslap are slowly starting to pull away here, aren't they? A little bit over 1,000 gold ahead, more like 1,400 or so. That's creating space between them and Snake Pit. And we've been talking about it all set. That 1,400 lead now matters way more than even a bigger lead, 30 minutes into the game.
I absolutely agree, and the majority of that lead is likely going to be around the duo lane here. The first blood going the way of Arkle is going to be huge. He's already started stacking up the Devo's Gloves, as has Spudio. He's going to be rapidly approaching the Ninja Tabai. I think that Beltslap has put Arkle in a position now where if they so choose, they could leave him alone on an island. They don't have to worry about Arkle getting sold out by a Jingwei for the most part, and if they do keep 2 members, Snake Pit that is, over in the duo lane, Arkle can just play safely and make them split their farm a little bit less efficiently. I'd like to see Trix try and rotate into mid, play that 3v3 with Johnny and Zeros and try and shut down Angry.
Exactly. They've got so much pressure there between Zeros and Johnny that you want to see Trix get involved, and it looks like he has moved his way over towards mid alongside Zeros and Johnny as they went for that red buff. They're kind of posted up looking for opportunities. Unfortunately, there's no one there for now. Trixtank now looking to move forward, but doesn't do so with that pillar there. No knock-up available, so he gives up on it. But I like what Trixtank's looking for. He went to mid when the red was up, when they had a chance for pressure. Now he's back over here with Arkle, looking to see if they can help him out. He is playing that rotating support style.
He is. And Trix, again, you can feel it in his pathing even, that he is wanting to play much more aggressively. He passed low through the enemy red buff. He's pathing through the Gold Fury as well. He's playing this solo agent role. Trixtank seems like he's trying to take a little bit of the onus onto himself and make it that much easier for his team. He's constantly looking to make plays happen.
Well, you got to think a little bit about the history of Trixtank, right? And all the different rosters he's been on and how they often end up falling short right before they make it to the finish line. I mean, they always had so much expectations on them, and Trix has felt like he's had to bear a lot of that burden from them not quite living up to the expectations back in the SPL. And now that they're right here on the precipice of qualifying and might get knocked out by Snake Pit, he can't afford to watch it happen again, man. He is taking some of it onto his own shoulders to see what they can do. And now maybe forcing the issue a little bit, because there's not even a red buff near spawning. Really not much here for him to try and grab. He's just lurking around, taking whatever might be there.
To me, it almost feels prideful. I get the sense that Beltslap are trying to emit the energy of, why are we struggling right now? We haven't lost to Snake Pit ever. We've never lost to this team before. We're not going to lose on the way to Worlds, and that's the playstyle that I think is really encapsulating the personality of this team. This is when they feel or look most comfortable in my eyes, is when they're trying to play aggressive, when they're trying to make a message out of these other teams. I want to see this continually from this squad. The standard style of let's wait till 35 minutes and then start to look for fights, I don't think really is the truest form of what Beltslap is trying to achieve with this team play.
Beltslapper, it feels like they're on a warpath, but we know what Snake Pit have done so far this set. They shocked us with 2 wins. Right now, technically, it's 2-1 in this set, right? Because Beltslap's 1 win is from the fact they made it through the upper bracket without losing. So if you're Snake Pit, you have to remember that so far you've beaten belt slap here in this set. You can't afford to let that slip away from you now. You have Angry on a playmaking mains that can carry a game here for you. You've got Worst Turtle on Nemesis who can shred through these targets, get your playmakers into a position to succeed, and maybe you can keep that momentum going. I mean, if they win this set, it would be 3-1 against belt slap. That's pretty convincing.
Absolutely crazy to think about how far Snake Pit has pushed Belt Slap to this point. Now we're starting to rapidly approach that point again where teams are getting to level 12. They're starting to work their way towards that second relic, and this is generally where people group up around the Gold Fury, but Worst Turtle going for a little cheeky pyro play.
Just kind of soloing it for now with Angry on his way to help, and I don't think anyone realizes it right now. Belt Slap are like, hey, we got an alone Terra in mid. They're laughing about it, and now I think they're going to realize that was because the rest of Snake Pit was somewhere else. But Myth, you know you have the experience of being there. Are you expecting that Pyromancer play at that time?
No, you certainly don't. I think it's only afforded them that option because of the itemization path that Worst Turtle goes for. Normally, Nemesis will slow down a little bit around that slot. Generally, a Mace gets picked up or a Golden Blade in the recent months. But now, with the Stone Cutting, immediately he's shredding through these objectives. It's probably about 130 damage per auto attack. And then, with that, you have the healing from Angry as well, meaning that he's not even going to have to trade out his health bar. He can stay out and continue farming. It's just a heads-up play from Snake Pit, realizing what their draft is capable of at this point of the game.
They've got the opportunity now. They brought this game much more back towards parity. They stalled out Belt Slap's aggression we saw earlier. They've dealt with Johnny several times. Yeah, he's 0-0 despite all the pressure. He hasn't found any kills yet. It looks like Spuddio is starting to hold his own in the 1v1 despite being behind. This is Snake Pit kind of stabilizing here a little bit and getting back to a point in the game where they know how to play, but Belt Slap saying no to that. They're heading right towards the Gold Fury, and Spuddio just got through backing. I don't think Snake Pit are going to push up at all. This Gold Fury belongs to Belt Slap. A great call.
Tricks with that positioning, gets the vision on the enemy team inside of the red buff, immediately says, guys, look, they're not stepping up whatsoever. Just do it. Just get in there. And it absolutely works out. If Snake Pit got the consolation prize a little bit early, Belt Slap walk away with the trophy that is Gold Fury. Now, every neutral objective has been removed from the map. It's going to be fights over mid-camps for the next couple minutes. It's going to be fights over potentially just structure damage. I wouldn't be surprised if we just see both teams go back to farming, because right now, there's truthfully nothing to fight over.
No, not at all. So about 1,400 or so now for Belt Slap rather, that they're out in front here. They've got Brawlers and Hydras for Johnny. That feels like go for me for Seth. That's so much damage already. He might be looking to get a little bit more active. Genji's finished for Julio. So some big power spike items getting completed over on the side of Belt Slap, whereas Snake Pit still aren't quite there. Spuddio waiting on his third item to come through. Still waiting on what Worst Turtle's going to go to grab as well. Looks like he hasn't been back-to-back in a while, or back to base, so this is a real brief window for Belt Slap, but as you already said, what could they even do with it? Most of the big objectives are down, and even all the farm in the jungle for the most part is down, so not a lot for them to try and do with it.
This is a situation where if Belt Slap were Ghost, they'd be W keying at the enemy speed buff, W keying at the enemy red buff. But over here in Europe, we played a little bit slower. They're going to play a little bit more methodical. They want to go for these guaranteed wins. I do want to highlight that Angry has again elected not to pick up the Breastplate of Valor. Instead, looks like it could be a Mantle of Discord coming up, which should help out a little bit with this dive from Set. He has to dedicate his body to deal damage, meaning that the CC immunity that is afforded to Hell from the passive of Mantle, as well as the stun, should be able to get her out of some sticky situations. But that lack of CDR, not getting any penetration in your build either, means that it's going to be pretty hard for her to get value.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised with this, but here's Belt Slap doing just what you asked. They're looking aggressive on the red buff, and they got it quick with the aggressive zone coming out from Tricksink. And I don't think Snake Pit can find any kind of answer here for it this time, Mifflin. Instead, Belt Slap make it out of there. Snake Pit are unable to defend the red buff this time. This is what we need to see from Belt Slap all set, and they're pulling it out here when it matters most.
It's a cool confidence as well. It's calculated invades. It's calculated fights. They're not taking every single fight presented. They're manufacturing good situations for themselves. And even in that one small skirmish, not only do they strip away the red buff, but they also take away Angry's beads. That's a lot of mental pressure for a Hell because, well, she's not truthfully tanky yet. She doesn't deal a massive amount of damage. And now she's going to be very susceptible to a gank. Angry's going to be playing very passive until those are back up.
To make sure that he's being careful in the middle lane, especially with a Set roaming around out there. That is a problem and a half for any mid laner in the world right now. look at the ADCs, at least for now, about a level and a half separated them. Spudio just ticked over to level 14 as he took down that minion wave. So there's still a lot of areas where Snake Pit are behind. Looks like they're a bit ahead in the middle lane, though, as Angry's been able to outpace Zeros in farm. But I don't know if that's going to make up for the disparity in the jungle as well. 2 levels there. It's going to mean some problems for Snake Pit.
Yeah, Zeros has relegated himself to a more facilitator role, whereas Angry's been allowed to free farm. Zeros is constantly splitting his mid waves with Johnny and then allowing Johnny to farm his own jungle on his own. That's why we've got 2 levels up on the set, is because that seems to be the priority for Beltslap.
They're stealing blue buff too. This is a different Beltslap than we've seen the whole rest of this set, isn't it? This is just aggression, and it's on these buff timers that they're aware of, and they're getting there early, way ahead of Snake Pit, and not even giving them a chance to contest.
It's a much more smothering playstyle, right? Once you get this aggression in the early game, every single bit of gold you get, every single bit of experience you get means so much more than it will in the next 10 minutes. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'd love to see from Beltslap. They take a small lead in the early, and they're willing to grow it exponentially. Look for these calculated plays. And Snake Pit seem like they're kind of lost for an answer to this. They're not used to having to play against this. Beltslap, it feels like maybe even just condition Snake Pit to get used to that passive playstyle.
Right.
So they can bust out this aggression now.
Yeah, Snake Pit are used to tilling in cruise control, huh? And now Beltslap have suddenly put the pedal to the floor, and Snake Pit are struggling to answer with it. Now this time, they get there in time to defend their red buff. That is the kind of response they need. Plus, Spudio is letting the waves beat him all the way down in his tower, so he can farm safely as well. Snake Pit are doing some of the right things to get themselves back into the game. It's just that if Beltslap keep playing it correctly, keep applying the pressure properly, it's going to be really hard for Snake Pit to come up with the right answers to slow them down. I mean, if Beltslap are there first, there's not much you can do, even when you're playing smart.
Agreed, and even if you take that one micro interaction, sure, they got their own red buff, but they traded Pyromancer for it. Beltslap absolutely had timer on that red. They know what's going on. Instead, they decided to take the neutral objective, and immediately we're regrouping. Gold Fury spawned. Arkel's already pulled it.
I don't know if Snake Pit are going to be able to get in here for it this time. Worst Turtle's cut off by Julio and the pressure from Trick Tank. There's just no chance for him, man. This lead is ballooning out of control. This is what you were talking about with an early game lead. It can be stifling at times. You can feel like there are no options. It's what a lot of the best teams in the SPL do all the time. Ghost are big fans of its ratings as well. SSG play a bit of a slower style, but once they are on, and they don't give it another chance back in. And now Beltslap are taking the mid-tier 1 tower. It's exactly what we've been asking from all set, and Snake Pit are struggling to find a way back in.
3 members of Snake Pit there rotated into their own jungle to just look at Trix Tank, while 4 members of Beltslap stripped away the tier 1 tower in mid. Now that defensive bastion is going to be removed. Fire Giant, I think, which is crazy to say in this set, is going to be on the menu relatively soon. I'd be surprised if Beltslap don't pull it in the next 2 or 3 minutes with the lead that they've established. If not, going for the objective, at least to try and force a fight while they have this absolutely massive lead. 5,000 gold in their favor. Snake Pit have shown a propensity to just letting these objectives go. They're not willing to show up for the Fire Giant, I think. If Beltslap show up, I think it's going to be a nice heat check to see how Snake Pit is feeling.
Snake Pit, it would be tough for him. It's Mantle of Discord there alongside the cooldown boots and Mage's Blessing for Angry. So a good amount of CDR there in the back pocket and some tankiness, but I just don't know if the damage is going to be there for him, and subsequently without the requisite power, is the healing going to be there for Angry, right? I mean, this is a tough battle for him, and Myth, you're almost too generous with your timer. 2.5 minutes to 3. They wanted 40 seconds before they stepped on the FG, and they're burning it. Oh my god, it's down to half HP already, and they still have Arkle sticking on it. He's dropping it though. This was indeed the bait. They wanted to force Snake Pit in to a bad team fight. Let's see how Snake Pit look for the disengage. They've got Worst Turtle moving back towards Hell. Tarim still alive with thorns around him. Snake Pit have handled the aggression well, and now they're looking to be the aggressors. They've got Julio low. Snake Pit have done a good job getting right back into the fight.
A split engagement from Beltslap there. Julio chases out Worst Turtle. The rest of Beltslap take the core 4v4. Nobody falls, but in a situation like this, who's going to be the winner? It's the one with superior healing, the one who already has a lead. Beltslap are back up to full and have burned through the majority of ultimates on the side of Snake Pit. They could go ahead and try and pull again. The only ultimate still available is Spudio's. That airstrike isn't even going to be that big of a deal. I think Beltslap can just go ahead and go straight back to fire.
Yeah, this is so clean from them. They also got both shells, a sprint and the beach, and Angry such a valuable first bait for them, and then they're going to come right back to the Fire Giant and Snake Pit now. They're not going to be able to pull off the same heroics. They don't have any of the tools to do it. Genetics is to go in and
What?
He takes it away! Belt Slap don't confirm the objective, my goodness! They've given Snake Pit away back in.
That was crushing Earth. Terra just walked in and took it away with 129 damage. You're telling me that Johnny can't beat 120 damage? You're telling me that Back Off isn't going to do 130 damage at this point? Belt Slap, you were playing so perfectly up to this point. The aggression, the ability to force these fights on the objectives, and then one misplay lets it all slip. The gold lead is cut down to 3K. I like to equate Fire Giant to 10. Snake Pit is in a position now where they can look to push their lead. Pyromancer should be theirs for free. Towers, that should go their way. We've got a set here, Finch.
This is the reverse side of the aggressive play, right? If you, instead of going fire, you're fighting around towers, you don't have quite the same chance to give that up. I'm not going to say anything negative about Belt Slap trying for it. I like that play much better than waiting around, but you got to confirm. I mean, you can't just let Terra walk in and take it.
With her two, by the way.
And then leave right afterwards. I don't know, man. Snake Pit are right back in this one. And listen, Belt Slap or Snake Pit, whoever wins this, their opponent waiting for them is Renegades or SSG? No, this ain't going to fly against them, man. This has got to be cleaned up, or they're going to get smacked down in a hurry.
And look at it now, Belt Slap are in a position where they were controlling the map, Finch. Wherever they walked was golden. The yellow brick road formed at their feet, just making it easy. And now they have to give up towers for free. Snake Pit can do whatever they want. Pyromancer, tier 1. Tier 1 on left. They should go group up on duo. This is crazy. Look at him. He just walks in, Finch. That's not okay.
Listen, I appreciate the replay production, guys, but we know what happened. He walked in and took it. There was no contest for it. And listen, Belt Slap are not in a position where they suddenly are no longer have their lead. I mean, yes, they lost some, but it's 2K cold, right? But they still have a Set and an Aphrodite and a Ramen and Wandu coming into the late game. They can still grab this win. But they're making it so unnecessarily difficult on themselves. You just got to zone there a little bit better and then make sure your confirm is on point, because that's a 1 in 10. What percentage do you give that for Genetics to take that?
1 in 10. That's a 1 in 100, man. It's 130 damage 22 minutes into a game, bro. Everyone beats. Sobek beats that, man. Tail Whip does like 240 at this point. It's double. It's absolutely insane that it goes down that way. And let's not talk bad on Snake Pit's draft. They've got a Hell in the late game, a Nemesis, a Terra. It doesn't matter how strong Belt Slap is here. Fire Giant is the only thing that's going to switch it up.
Well, this could be the game. How this fight around the Fury goes, as Belt Slap keep the objective leash. So both teams have now reset it, but look where Taram is. He's moved around to the backside of this fight as the Oni Fury gets lower and lower. Pushing in with the Cursed Donk, though, is going to be Belt Slap, and they have Snake Pit low already. Angry has already fallen as Johnny gobbles him up. This is the response Belt Slap needed after a careless mistake near the FG.
I mean, that's Julio. That's Julio doing it all. He blinked in, found a 4-man slow with Warrior's Will, hit 4 people with Unk, and then immediately forces the entirety of Snake Pit to fall back. Belt Slap owes an apology to Julio for making him work this hard.
He did it last game with the fight over near the Tier 1 in solo, where he set up for the team to win. He's done it here again. When Belt Slap let themselves get to the brink, Julio pulls them back, but Miff, I don't know how many more times he'll be able to pull off these heroics. Pull this team back from the brink. Now, the Tier 2 tower goes down. They got the goal from Oni and from the tower, but they haven't spent any of that yet. If Snake take a fight here, it's still pretty close to even.
It is. It seems like Belt Slap wanted to continue to push. Snake Pit were thinking about potentially split pushing. They were pushing down the mid tower. They almost take down the Tier 2. They are able to jump to about 50%, but they think better of it once Belt Slap shows numbers on the Phoenix. Essentially, Belt Slap controls where Snake Pit is allowed to rotate. Fire Giant wears off, and now we're back to a neutral state. The only thing that changed since last time Belt Slap pulled fire is that about 5 or 6 minutes have passed. That 4,000 gold lead they had before is starting to mean less and less as time goes on. This game, I'm willing to call it even.
Wow, look at those charts. That is a roller coaster ride if I've ever seen one. Down, then up, then down again. And Belt Slap have managed to take that gold lead back down, back in their favor. But as you said, instead of that peak they had at 18 minutes when it was of maximum value, now it's relatively not worth quite as much. We'll see if Snake Pit, though, can answer back. They are not in position to defend the fire, but they got time. 20 seconds till it spawns again.
They do, and already we see what the strategy is for Snakepit on these fights. They haven't engaged a fight themselves. It's always been counter-engage. If Julio is able to do the exact same, the best counter-engage tool Snakepit has is Terra Ultimate, immediately going to be mitigated by the Ankh that we have on Julio. It seems like Snakepit aren't the ones making the proactive plays. Even the best play we've seen from them in this match was stealing the Fire Giant. That's just responding to Belt Slap, doing damage to it. I need to see Snakepit choose a fight themselves. Try and find a pick. Try and displace someone. Create an advantage so that you can push into fire.
All the differences in this set have been hero plays. Angry with the Chung, Julio back in Game 4, and now here in Game 5. The big differences between these teams haven't even been team play. It's been, you know, which guy steps up and kind of makes an individual play. That's both bad when you look to the future, but good here. That means someone on Snakepit could still step up and save this game for them, save their world chances. Fire Giant now dropped. Bellsap had it down to half, released the objective, and instead are looking more for the fight. There's nothing there. They go back to the objective. Not pulled yet, but they're waiting on Snakepit to overstep.
Looks like they've learned their lesson. No longer are we going to leave it up to a coin toss. Not that I'd call the last one a coin toss anyway. Instead, Belt Slap are going to go ahead and try and push this one down. Force Snakepit into grouping up as 5. Control their rotation path means that you control the Fire Giant pit.
I like this. They're moving up a little bit more, and as you said, denying space here to Snakepit, but not giving that space back up. Snakepit moving back in, but Worst Turtle alone in mid has to be careful. He takes a safer route underneath. He'll be able to regroup back with the team. At this point, all ultimates available, all relics available. Upgraded Sunder and Ankh are the big ones to watch for Belt Slap. How Trickshank mitigates Terrorim and how Julio mitigates Angry and Genetics are kind of the big threads. On the other side, Snakepit have double upgraded Shell. That will be the response to Johnny and to trying to keep their backline safe.
That Shell, we saw double upgraded Shell in the last team fight. It wasn't enough. If Julio, I guess, is willing to put on his hero's cape again and just do what he does, those aren't going to be enough to split up the team fight. They need Snakepit, that is, to keep Angry in a safe position. They need the front line to step forward. So far, it's been a 5-man grouping every single time. Traditionally, when you have tanks, you want them to go in first, create the space so that the damage can follow up. But it seems like Terrorim and Genetics, by extension, have been allocating all of their time to trying to peel out Angry.
Well, Bellsap have the Fire Giant started again. It's down to half, and Snakepit have to hurry up. The burn is there for Bellsap if they want to get in. So Genetics is first. He's stolen it once. He'd be willing to steal again. Bellsap gets the Fire Giant this time, though. But what about the fight on the backside of it? Trickshank has the lurking in the waters. But it looks like Snakepit are just going to back up, maybe? I mean, they had a great position where they were in. They reset, and now they're taking the fight, and they've let themselves get pincered in the middle of the battle. Maybe Belt Slap can collapse on them indeed. Genetics is the one in trouble in the middle of the fight, but he has survived throughout all of the damage. And now Snakepit looking to push back in, but I don't think it's there. I don't like the way they took the fight or played the FG there, man.
What a strange engagement. And again, Belt Slap throw it up to a coin toss. 3 members of Snakepit were in the pit when the Fire Giant fell. It's absolutely insane how haphazard, how devil may care they're approaching these team fights when Worlds is on the line.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Both of these teams, it's a grind, right? They've been battling all day. This is the fourth game of this match with game 1 going away.
Oh!
So which team has enough left of the tank as Johnny moves in and does manage to bring Spudio down quite low. They're getting aggressive with the Fire Giant now. Tier 2 has been burned away, and Bellsap's lead is expanding as their warpath continues. Spudio still needs a back, and it's going to be a 5v4 on this Phoenix. They're just pushing in right away, but Spudio right back in the fray and trying to slow them down. Trickshank takes a ton of damage, but Bellsap are resetting.
They've got the minion wave right behind them. I thought for a second they'd try and go down for that tier 2 in mid, but instead they want to keep pressure up now.
They're going to try and push in when they feel they're strongest. In the back, Spudio's in trouble, and he's got Julio right on top of him. And in comes the stun, and Spudio fell before he got to do a lick of damage in that team fight. Right side Phoenix already low. It's claimed by Bellsap. They want to move on, and right now they're on the right path. So there are some low members in the back that need to move.
Genetics straight up killed Spudio with that wall. Oracle straight up killed Worst Turtle with an arrow. The fight continues. Bellsap are looking good.
They're trying to put this one to bed right here and now. Snakepit have been too strong. They've done too much, and Oracle gets himself a double kill, improves to 3-0-1. Terrorim has been claimed as well in Mifflin. I think that might have done it. Belt Slap have claimed 4 lives. Angry's got to do it all alone, but I don't think there's a chance. Belt Slap want to move on to the World's playoffs, and they've absolutely done it.
They've taken a roundabout path, Vision. They want to take a little bit more of a detour. They put Angry in the dirt for good measure. Welcome to Worlds, boys. We're going to need to see some improvements, though. SSG and Renegades, they're not going to let you get away with that.
No, they are not, but I think that there are a lot of fans out there that had a lot of faith in this Beltslap team. Maybe they stumbled a little bit, but they're going to have some time to grind a little bit, to practice at this high level, maybe even try and get some good scrims in. We'll see how that works out for them, but they're your representatives now here from the EU SWC, and they earned it. They've been the best team all phase. They managed to win it here, and now they're on their way.
They look good, man, and it's a hard trap to beat. I'll be interested to see how this true European style will match up against the SPL players who have largely kind of acclimated to this North American Ghost gaming style. I wonder if it's going to be a strategy that's able to work, or if they're going to have to adjust themselves and try and mesh into what's working in the SPL. I think that this is a team that you definitely want to keep your eyes on come Worlds time.
I mean, we said it before. If you're SSG and you get to pick, I don't know if you're picking Beltslap. They didn't quite look as clean as we expected from them, but still, I don't think you'd be confident wanting that team to be the one you're lining up against. Congratulations to Beltslap. They pulled it out here in the win, and they're going to be your representatives here from the EU SCC. It'll be a quick break, then we'll be right down and break it all down.
Well, they take the roundabout path, but they still get to their final destination here. Beltslap are going to be your European representative, either going up against SSG or the Renegades in the future, depending on what Space Station Gaming want to look at. But Kiki, we're not looking that far ahead just yet. Instead, we're looking at what that game was and how it is Beltslap got there. I mean, the first couple of games, it's a couple of fumbles late game. This time around, it feels like they come into it, they recognize it. I will have to call out, I think like 17 minutes into the game, that Zero's had 33 player damage. But other than that, everything else was pretty solid.
Yeah, Trixing finally got Sobek, and that ended up getting him an easy first blood in dueling, kind of setting the pace up, getting Arkle an easy lead. And when you have a Rama with the lead, it's going to get really hard to get through that, especially when he has an ultimate that gets him in the air and is safe.
And this has been the safety, I think, that comes through on the side of Beltslap. It felt like they were very difficult to lock down. And look at this. I mean, 22 minutes in before you start seeing kills, and then a time-lapse jump to what was the end of the game. I mean, these teams were fighting a ton throughout the early phase, but they didn't necessarily find all of the lockdown, the healing on both sides made it a little difficult. But once you got to this point, it feels like maybe overextension. I had mentioned it going into this fight while we were watching, but both Arkle and Zeros had their beads and Aegis coming up. And when you're mid laner and your carry are looking like that, you're not really sweating it too bad if you're belt slap.
It really seemed like the themes in these games were try not to die and maybe we'll win, but when you're 30 minutes in the game and there's only been like 2 kills, then it's really just a 50-50 and it's going to be based on who makes a mistake.
Yeah, you got a whole lot of goose eggs there in the death column for Belt Slap. A perfect game to close it out. Looking good there. That's a great way, I think, to be able to qualify, even though it takes you a little while to get there. And now it goes back. You know, when I was talking to Zeros in the interview, it was the question of, okay, are you even thinking about those Pro League teams right now, or are you only focused on the here and now? And he said, you know what? It'd be cool. We've been preparing all year to play up against some of those Pro League guys, but because of the way things have gone, right now all we care about is the finals. It ends up paying off for them, although, again, maybe a little closer than they thought it was going to be. I mean, you see Snake Pit here, I think really, really good play from them to be able to get up those 2 games, more than we really expected. But for Belt Slap, at least moving forward, what are some things that you think need maybe polishing or kind of change up for going into the big leagues?
Yeah, I feel like their playstyle is kind of like a candle. It's a slow burn, but I feel like SPL teams have fire extinguishers, they have flamethrowers, so you definitely have to have other sorts of play styles. You can't just rely on, let's get to 30 minutes and maybe we can win a team fight. No, you're gonna have to come up with some little thing that can surprise them.
Well, they got a little while to think about that. Right now, I'm hoping they're thinking about the here and now, what they thought about that set, how they feel about their win. We actually have an interview with Trickstank waiting by.
Absolutely, I am here with Trickstank. Looking good here, my man. Congrats on the win, even though it was something that was expected, clearly hard fought, so congrats on it. Let's go back kind of the middle of the set to Game 4. When you guys fell down 2-1, what was the team feeling? Where was the morale at? Were you guys worried at all?
I mean, I remember I talked with the boys and I said, like, I hope you guys are not nervous or anything, because I'm pretty sure, at least I knew, that we kind of lost the games and they didn't win it. It was basically just us throwing the late game, and if we just started playing properly, we would just win. So that's what we did the last 2 games, and stepped it up a little bit in the last game.
What, it was maybe 1 or 2 small mistakes that kind of cost you guys those games, so you really sealed them up. And you talked about it a little bit just now, kind of bringing it in that last game. It really felt like the whole team's play style changed in that last game. Was that on purpose to kind of come in a bit more aggressive, or is that just what you saw in that game?
I mean, personally, I think all 4 of those games were pretty boring. I tried to just, this last game, I just tried to sit at the red buff calling for my teammates to come fight because I was literally falling asleep. So I think I at least tried to step up the pace, even though it didn't happen anyways, but they ended up just giving everything to us, which was fine as well. Slow but steady lead. We got lucky, or sadly, Genetic stole the fire gun and then they got longer, But yeah, we stepped up the pace a little bit in the last game, and I think that was needed and unexpected, and what made us win that last game.
That is what it felt like, though, Trix. It felt like you in particular were trying to push that pace. So talk to me about what it means then to kind of lead these guys to this win. You've been playing for such a long time. You've been one of our best players we've ever had, really, and now you've kind of forged your own path here through the SWC. What does it mean for you guys to have made it here to be competing at Worlds again?
I mean, I think it's great. I think it's awesome playing with the guys from the SML as well, Johnny and Julio. Honestly, they're 2 super great players. Obviously, they have some SML tendencies, as I would say, but I have shaped them up to become real good players now, I would say. Nah, but honestly, Johnny is awesome. I think he has as much of a say in all our wins as I do, and Syrhos, and it is a team game at the end of the day, but we're really glad with the victory and going to Worlds, so it's going to be exciting.
Well, my last question here, I'm sure you guys are confident, but how much have you been focused on the Worlds part of this whole equation? Are you guys feeling prepped to be real competitive when you get there?
I mean, now obviously because of the corona and everything, we're playing from home, so that's kind of a downside, but it's going to be interesting, and hopefully we're just going to get a decent ping and be able to get some victories, but we haven't thought too much about Worlds, so we're just going to take it as it comes.
All right, well, congrats again, Trickstank, to you and the rest of the Belt Slap boys. Appreciate you being here for the interview. I'll get it back to the desk to close us out.
All right, thank you, man.
Always appreciate hearing from Trix Tank. I saw someone earlier, I think it was Omega Zordon in chat, mentioning that Trix Tank is one of the best objective stealers that we've had in Smite. And honestly, thinking back on his career, I'm personally inclined to agree. A lot of the biggest moments I can remember are Trix Tank being able to go in there, especially during the launch tournament. Congratulations to Trix and crew again for getting this win. And Kiki, it sounds like, at least from Trix's perspective, that's not the style of game he wants to play at all. He wants to play that fast pace that we're used to seeing. He was saying he was almost falling asleep there as they make it through there. A long bracket for him, but, I mean, does that give you a little more hope for Belt Slap moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a support, you can't fully control the state of the game. He said it himself.
Yeah.
He tries to whip his players into shape. But it's kind of like babysitting, you know, they're bound to, you know, crawl through some mistakes. So you kind of just have to slowly teach them the proper things to do. And Trixink is the right guy to do that.
You can lead them to water, you can't make them drink, but he got them there and they drank. He was lucky by the end of that one to make sure it went their way. A good win, once again, as they beat Snake Pit all through the winner's bracket as they come through. And that does it for Europe. But that doesn't do it for North America. We still have one more region trying to qualify. Remember, SSG will get to choose between Belt Slap and whoever wins tomorrow. Winter Dogs versus Get a Grip. Spreed versus Mind the Gap. That's the big one. The top bracket in North America is SOC versus SOC. The Challenger Cup teams are all knocked down into the lower bracket. Winter Dogs and Get a Grip get their chance to redeem it. But no matter what, an open circuit team will be in your finals. That is something that's going to be interesting. Not only in the finals, but in the finals with a one-game advantage depending on who it is between Spreed and Mind the Gap that get that win. So you do want to tune in tomorrow to make sure you find out who in North America is going to be able to find their spot going forward towards Worlds. Kiki, I just want to know, you're not necessarily rooting for anybody, but do you have a favorite in the bracket that's left that you think is going to be able to take it all?
I mean, I like Winter Dog's playstyle. It's very different from EU. While EU's is focused on farming, no. NA is focusing on going on your red buff and looking to kill you. So I love watching them.
Well, so Winter Dogs down there, they got to get through, Get a Grip, one of Spreed and Mind the Gap, and then the other to get there. But that's a team to keep your eye on. It's an interesting bracket again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Same start time as today, so you can translate that one into whatever region you happen to be into. It's been the same time we've been starting the last couple of days. But Kiki, thanks so much for joining me here on the desk and helping me break down these games. And again, congratulations to Belt Slap for being able to come through. We've got your EU victors. Tomorrow's North America. We'll see you then.